Okay, I have too many tabs open.
So we're live, guys?
Yeah, so we're live. Exactly. We are live.
Excellent. Let's go. Let's get it
Give
done.
it a couple of seconds for people to join and we'll go, man.
Yeah.
It's good. Let my beer settle. And you'll be very grateful. I have a coaster this time for my glass.
Way. Nice. At last.
Feeling fantastic. I got in trouble with you for quote unquote slamming my glass, and I got in trouble with my mom for drinking out of a can. I was like, God, I can't win.
Good. So, guys, I don't know if you guys are ready. It's okay. I'm
good,
sure people are going to join in, in a few minutes. Yep. So, yeah, I think we can start right away. I did add all the comments. So, for anybody listening, feel free to comment and interact with us. We are able to answer you during the show. We'll put your comments, on the show. We'll display them and everything. So, let's start right away in the next few seconds.
Hello, my friends. My name is Samuel Savy, and this week on the show, Michael McCall and Alexandre Ganguet-Ruzic join us to talk the Max Crepeau situation and give us some off-season Vancouver news. We preview the men national team trip to San Pedro Sula before we break down CF Montreal's week, and we give some well-deserved love to our Minister of Defense, Steph Labe, who is set to retire. This and a lot more on episode 65 of The Ball is Round. And I'm privileged to be joined by my good friends, Yves-Paul and Hadi Raphael, and honored by the presence on our show of Michael McCall of AFT and Canada and Alex Ganguet-Ruzic of Between the Sticks. How are you guys?
Very good. Glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, it's your second time, Michael, man.
Yeah, it's been almost a year.
I know. Time flies, doesn't it?
We didn't play a lot of games against you guys, so maybe that's why you weren't on the pod that often. Alex, I think it's your first time on The Ball is Round, right?
Yep, that's correct. I've done a few shows with Hadi, usually in French, actually, a couple of times. But the first time joining you guys, so I'm excited. I heard great things about the show. I've listened to an episode or two. It's always a pleasure. So happy to be here, and it's going to be a good time. We got lots to go through, like you mentioned.
Man. A week passes by in this crazy world of like Canadian soccer, and there's always so much you have to choose, and it wasn't something that was like that before. It's so cool that there's news and action going on, so that's perfect. Adi, Eve, you're good?
Yeah, we're all good.
Good. So let's jump right in. There was some huge news coming out of Vancouver this week, and we decided that we'll get Vancouver's finest on our show to talk about it. Max Crepeau traded to LAFC for $1 million in GAM. And now that we have you two, Michael and Alex, we'll preview your season by the same time. So maybe just have your, just a general thought about the team, about the trade. What's up in Vancouver right now? I'll start with you, Michael.
Well, I mean, this came out of nowhere. As far as we were concerned, I don't think any of us had any idea that this was on the cards. Max hadn't come to pre-season training. He wasn't there on Monday. We were told it was a personal issue. And usually you just don't think much of it when it's your starting goalkeeper that's not there, when there's not been any rumours. I spoke to him just about middle of December, and he was relaxed, he was happy, he was looking forward to coming back. He was talking very positively about the season to come. This has just come from nowhere. Axel's kind of indicated that they've known for a while now, but I don't know. It's so many things about this just don't add up. And unless Max decides to talk about it, we may never really know what's behind it. And if it is personal family issues, we don't really have any right to know. But there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, Alex, on your side, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like Michael says, it was really almost like it's just such a surprise that it's a move within the league. I mean, personally, I kind of wondered over the offseason. You kind of hear what Jonathan Osorio kind of mentioned in the offseason, saying especially Canadian players are trying to push for moves abroad for competition purposes. You always kind of wonder, okay, maybe Max will head abroad, he'll head to Europe. So it's more the fact that he's heading to LA. He's heading to not only an MLS team, he's heading to a direct rival, a rival you beat out by 5 points to make the playoffs earlier in the year. That for me was the big surprise. I remember earlier in the week when the kind of the personal reasons came out. I remember joking to one of the Whitecaps staff members. I'm like, he's not in Europe right now. He's organizing a transfer, right? And they're like, yeah, no, he's fine. But then 2 days later, he's traded to LA. That's for me the biggest surprise. And I think that's what's really, you look at, what the fan reaction is, the reaction amongst the media. That's the biggest surprise, that it was an internal move within MLS to a direct rival. And that's going to be the hardest part to stomach. I think fans, if he moved on to a bigger and better level, people would understand that that's the reality of the sport. We see a lot of that in Vancouver with players moving on. It's going to be tough when LAFC comes here for the first time and you've got one of the best goalkeepers in MLS who you used to have stopping shots. That's going to be the tough thing to stomach. So I think that was mostly the biggest surprise about this move, that people are really, struggling to comprehend how did something like that happen. And like Michael mentioned, until we know the full story, it's hard to speculate. You don't want to, full privacy to Max as he goes through the situation. It's obviously not one that he wants to be dealing with. The Whitecaps, when they were talking about it, doesn't sound like it's a fun situation for anyone. So hopefully all is well with him, but that's certainly going to be the toughest part to stomach if you're a Whitecaps fan or if you're the Whitecaps themselves.
I guess the fan reaction was pretty unanimous. I mean, Max was loved in Vancouver. So how was it received in Vancouver, that move?
Shock and confusion and everything that goes with it. And like as Alex said, you've made a Western Conference rival stronger.
Yeah.
A team that their whole time in the league, they've struggled defensively. That's kind of what's let them down, really. They'd shown signs of getting better, but then goalkeeping situation, they needed a goalkeeper. So because because Max is an international, Axel Schuster said that they could have gone anywhere in the world to get a goalkeeper, and they were the only team that was prepared to match Vancouver's valuation of $1 million in GAM. But if they'd gone to the Eastern Conference, you could stomach it a little bit better, and I think that's how the fans are looking at it. But to go to a team that you're going to be playing a couple of times, that could be battling for the last playoff place, depending on how things go, he's a difference maker. Without his saves, the Whitecaps would not have been a playoff team. I fully believe that. And as good as Thomas Hasal is, I don't think he's ready to be that starter yet. I mean, he'll be good, but he needs a very good defense in front of him. And I'm not quite sure Vancouver's got that right now.
We're going to talk about it a bit later, Michael, but I just wanted to ask you something, because here in Montreal, the fan base here of CF Montreal is really, really angry because you got Maxime Crepeau for $50,000 in GAM and you're selling him for $1 million in GAM. So when you look at it from that perspective, it must feel good, no?
Well, it's great business. I mean, the Whitecaps are criticised a lot for their business side. I mean, this is tremendous business, but only if you spend the money. And the money has spread out over 3 to 4 seasons. And with what they're getting in season 1, all that's really going to get them technically is you can buy an international spot with it, because that's where the going rate is. So I don't think it helps really in strengthening the team, because if they are going to strengthen the team, they're going to probably need to look overseas to do that. But yeah, they've made money, but it's not even real money. It's just funny money.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you kind of segued into where we were going because we wanted to bring you a bit on, last season, this season coming in, and what to expect now that Max has left, and there were a lot of changes in Vancouver. So, what I would ask is, Vancouver had a good 2021 season, a very good one, and they finally made the playoffs thanks to some very good results in the final stretch. How much did Vanni Sartini have to change after Marc Dos Santos left?
I'll hop on that. Certainly, Vanni he was a big addition to the squad. He was kind of had the bonus perspective of being really familiar with a lot of the players, having been the assistant coach before. He was also familiar with a lot of the younger players, having worked in the academy. I think it was just, it was kind of like the perfect storm, say, Vanni, just the way the enthusiasm he brought, but also the tactics, some of the little tweaks they made. Switching to a back three, which was kind of, if you talk to people in Vancouver for a while, you always kind of wondered, they always had the personnel for a back three, but they just, whenever Marc Dos Santos tried it wouldn't look very good. And you're like, okay, scrap it, go back to a back four. The way Vanni Sartini, he quickly implemented it. He put some new faces in the back three. The acquisition of Florian Jungwirth was a big difference maker. You got Jake Nerwinski all of a sudden goes from a right back to a pretty good looking center back as well. Just Vanni Sartini's little tweaks that he made, and what I found was the biggest part of his tenure. And I think if you're heading into this year, what you want him to keep up is how he got the most out of the bottom of his roster. Because with Marc Dos Santos, there'd always be patches where some players were doing great. They'd be losing games, but there'd be players doing great. But it would kind of be, 4, 5, 6 players. And then the guys on the bench were kind of struggling for form. Whenever you'd rotate the squad, you'd notice a big drop off. Last year, every game, Vanni Sartini would rotate, it'd feel like, and they wouldn't miss a beat. All the backups, all the starters, they were kind of on the same page, and that squad harmony made a big difference because Vancouver, one thing that it was, you could, heading into the season, you could talk, okay, maybe there's a bit of a lack of top end talent, but you could see the depth with there. They made a point over the last few years of signing multiple guys at a lot of positions, and under Marc Dos Santos, they didn't weaponize that depth. Vanni really did a good job of doing that. And I think heading into this year, that was his biggest asset. And if he can keep that up, it'll make a big difference. Because you look at training camp right now, they've got a lot of bodies, a lot of good players. You kind of wonder who's going to be able to take minutes. Are guys going to be happy on the bench? And if Vanni can continue to manage that like he did, then it'll be a big asset heading into this year.
Michael, anything there?
Yeah, I just can't really disagree with any of that at all. What Vanni's done to this team is he's given them an identity. And that is something I think the Whitecaps have been looking for years. Like when Kyle Robinson was here, they did have an identity, and it was like a very defensive team that struggled to get much going offensively. Marc Dos Santos, from day one, I remember after he was introduced, we sat down with him, we had a chat, and he showed us all these plans as to what he wanted the team to do. And he showed us videos, and this guy's going to do this, and I want 3 midfielders to do this, this, and this. Never happened. And whether that was because the personnel that they brought in weren't capable of playing that way, or whether they just ignored completely as soon as they got on the pitch what they were meant to do, I don't know. But Vanni's come in, he's given them an identity. And when we spoke to him in December, he said, as far as he's concerned, he's got 22 first-team guys, and he sees them all pretty level, and that's what he's going to go with, that you need a big squad, you need to rotate those. The rest of the guys may come in and get the odd minute here and there. They'll more be in the MLS2 team, but he foresees a lot of rotation using these 22 guys, everyone to step in. And he's also looking at introducing a second system this season. So it's not just the 3 at the back and the 3-4-1-2. He's going to go for something else. What that's going to be, he wants to try it out during pre-season. I think ultimately you could be looking at maybe just a plain 4-4-2, but I don't know. We've got wingers, but we don't play a system that uses wingers. And as Alex said, you've got to keep guys happy. So you've got to have a formation at some point that these guys can come in and play.
It's so funny because we have exactly the same problem here in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
But also Wilfried Nancy said exactly the same thing. We're going to use more than one system this year. So we can't wait to see what he's going to do this year in 2022.
But guys, were you surprised by the success that Sartini had in 2021? Does that come like out of the blue for you guys when De Santos left?
I was. I don't know about Alex, but I mean, the big question was, how were they going to do when they got back to BC Place? And to make a run, they had to pretty much win out at BC Place, and they pretty much did. And on paper, it looked a big task. But when you go into August, bottom of the conference, and then you go and you lose to a CPL team, and then you get rid of your head coach, you're thinking, oh, let's just make the most of this and just kind of build for next season. But it was kind of like lightning in a bottle. And I guess that is my big fear for this year. It's like, was that a one-off? Did he just manage to capture everything at the right time? Did the players just buy into it? He's infectious. He's so enthusiastic. I listened to him and I want to just go on the pitch and run through a wall for him. Can that get sustained for the whole season? I don't know. Was it just that it was a short season? Other teams were tiring. We hit our stride. I don't know. But I mean, I was surprised. I don't know about you, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Vanny heading into the appointment, I mean, you as well, probably, Michael, you've had a chance to speak with him a lot. Even before he was hired, he's just a fun guy to talk to. He knows the game. He was honestly, one thing that I said when he was hired is he was probably the most qualified coach in the club. It's just he never really seemed to have interest in a role like this. There's a reason why he kind of moved to the academy from the first team role he had prior. He wanted to, he's more of a long-term kind of visionary guy. You can kind of tell with the post, the jobs he had in the past where he was working as kind of a coacher of coaches in the US and in Italy. He knew the game. There was no doubt he knew the game. So when he was hired, I was like, this is good as the interim head coach. I'm sure he'll have some good ideas. It'll be fun. But like Michael says, you don't expect the team to turn around as they did so quickly without really any changes. And I mean, I guess, it shows that there were some pieces there that maybe weren't utilized properly. I guess the fact that Brian White scored 10 goals in however many 15, 20 games under Vanny shows that there was obviously a lot more to be gotten out of him. Obviously, the addition of Ryan Gauld was always going to make a difference, but even just the way that Gauld seamlessly fit into Vanny's system, that also could have, maybe gone sideways had, he'd not been integrated properly. And yeah, just like I mentioned earlier, it was just a surprise to see how well the most he got out of everyone. Like Michael says, now the big thing is, what happens in the second year? Was it just a case of, oh, Vanny's a nice guy, everyone who wants to stick around, they were just, okay, let's give it a shot, see where it goes. Oh, this is pretty fun. We made the playoffs. Okay. Well, now the second year, you've got a full year. You've got to work hard. Not only that, everyone in MLS knows what you're about now. Last year, you're just kind of these likable underdogs. You're winning home games. People are sort of taking note of you. Okay, these guys in Vancouver, maybe they're having fun. Okay, now people have a target. Say, we need to beat Vancouver. We don't want to miss out on a playoff spot to Vancouver. They're actually a threat. They have to handle people, scouting them maybe a little harder than they were before, game planning for them. So I think for Vanny, it's going to be a big challenge to prove, okay, it wasn't just a fluke. I think he's well prepared to do it. I think he's spent all offseason planning. He's a likable guy. People will buy in, but it's going to be a real test of, okay, can he now adjust to other teams, figure him out? Because we see that a lot in all sports. You see a coach go on a run, and then sometimes they keep it going and you forget about it. And then sometimes they flash out. And then in 5-10 years, we'll be talking. Remember those 6 months we had with Vanny Sartini? Those were the best 6 months ever. And then, you forgot about it. So it's going to be interesting to see how he answers to that second season challenge.
That's interesting, Alex. And, you talked a lot about Ryan Gauld and Brian White. Were there really the pieces that were missing, or were there something else that came in, except for Vanny, of course?
Kind of a bit of both. I mean, it's easy to look at the team and you see Brian's goals and you're like, well, there we go. There's the difference maker that we needed. But he wasn't brought in to be the starter. He was brought in to be the backup to Lucas Cavallini when he was away with Canada. And he struggled when he first came here under Mark DeSantis, but Ryan Gauld coming in, getting back home, seemed to just unlock something in Brian. Cava, I'm sure we'll come to, is just a mystery just now as to what on earth has happened to him? But like Brian White, if you said to me now, Brian White's going to get 12 goals in 2022, I'll bite your hand off for that. That's over a whole season. Take that any day of the week, because we've struggled to have guys that score double digits. But if you expect him
I'm
to
familiar
keep,
with that.
Yes, I'm sure you guys are. But if anyone expects him to keep up that scoring rate that he had, it's like, no, because you're talking Golden Boot, you're talking international call-ups, you're talking probably a move to Europe. I don't think that's Brian White. Again, right place, right time. Ryan Gauld has a lot to do with it. But I mean, the whole team came together. Alex mentioned there, Vanny's done well at getting the best out of some guys that you maybe wouldn't expect to. Jake Nowinski coming in and basically transforming into a centre-back's a great example. Vanny wants Christian Dahomey to be more of a wing-back this year. He said to me that he wants him to play 75% as a wing-back. I don't know that Christian Dahomey wants to play 75% of the games as a wing-back, but that's another thing of like, you're fitting the best pieces into a team and maybe getting the best out of them. So it's everything combined, but we haven't strengthened where other teams have, and that is a concern.
Yeah. And I know kind of you did obviously have a guy who probably could play wing back in Ali Adnan previously. And of course, a big part of the turbulent start, if you will, to Vancouver's season last year was the fact that he wasn't with the team while they were stationed in Utah to start the season. So could you guys give us any like insight around what was the situation all about where he was separated from the team for just about all the time up until he departed, and what's he up to now?
I think I'm going to go for a few minutes and come back for that answer, because I think I would have the same problem as Ali Adnan, but let's go ahead, guys.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying,
let's go for this.
It was certainly a strange situation. I mean, it's interesting you brought up Ali Adnan because, I think of it regularly how he would have looked in Vanni Sartini's system as a wingback. It was a big loss, but it's unfortunate. It shows sometimes the reality of the world that we live in. But obviously, Ali Adnan from Iraq, he has an Iraqi passport. The U.S. just never granted him a visa, and at the start of the season when the Whitecaps were stationed in the U.S., they needed to get a visa. This wasn't a situation where, okay, maybe for the first few months he plays only in Canada while you figure that out. Mm-hmm. No, you're spending the next 4 or 5 months without one of your highest paid players, a wingback who can't go to the U.S. and play. And at the time, they didn't have any idea of when they would return. You'd hear, they'd be in Utah for the whole season. They'd be there for 2 months, 5 months. Looking back, all the projections were all over the map. I think the fact that they got back when they did in August. I mean, we have to remember the Whitecaps were the last Canadian team by a good, 6 weeks to return to Canada to play. So it was just that whole uncertainty about the visa, and then the Whitecaps, kind of like we saw with this Crepeau trade. Now with the new, someone like Axel Schuster at the helm, they're trying to do the best by their players whenever they're in situations like this. Maybe before they might have held on to him and just seen, but they realized, okay, Ali Adnan, he wants to play on Iraq's World Cup qualifying squad. The less he's playing, the more difficult that's going to be. They released him from his contract. And for him, it was just unlucky because I think shortly after he got released, he went to go play for Iraq. He hurt his groin. He was out for 2 to 3 months. And then now recently he signed in the Danish First Division. I might botch the pronunciation. I think it's Vejle Bold Club. I just know them because Mandrakar James, the former Canadian, plays there. So I was following them already. Spoiler, they're awful. They're a genuinely awful club. They're in the relegation zone. I think they've won 1 or 2 games out of 18 games. Their goal difference is in the negative 20s. They've lost some games by 5 or more goals. So it's a tough situation for Ali Adnan to go to, and he hasn't played much because he's been injured. So he's kind of from where he was at a year ago when he was with the Whitecaps. It's kind of been a fall downwards, and it's just unlucky, really, what happened with the whole visa situation and then the injury and the contract termination. It's a really sad situation, even, I'd say.
I would say, though, that it's a very suspicious situation. You've got a guy that signed a deal and he's been given a visa and he's played and everything's great. Then he goes away for the off season. He's pictured in the streets of Iraq protesting with the protesters, comes back to Canada, all of a sudden can't get a visa. Now, you're not telling me that's not connected. And I don't understand how you can give someone a visa for part of his contract and then turn around and say no. I personally think the league should have done more. The Whitecaps said the league did and the league were pushing, but I don't know. There's so many things that don't make sense. The crazy thing was, if we'd got back to Vancouver earlier, they confirmed he'd be able to play the home games. He just wouldn't be able to go and play the away games. So it's just, there's so many more things to it, and there's some obvious things that spring to mind, but it was best for both club and player to move on by that point. But it was a big, big loss to us, and we never really replaced him. And as Alex says, you do wonder just how good could we have been with him going up that left wing in Vanny's system, because they were good, but that could have been the difference between making the playoffs and, say, a deep run.
Yeah, no, and that's the worst part is what ifs, right? Oh, but nonetheless, I mean, it seems like it was beyond everyone's control. So, well, just have to wish him, I guess, the best in his new club, which sounds like a challenge and a half.
Yeah.
Speaking of other departures, though, in the last few days, of course, along with the massive news of Crepeau being traded to LAFC, Mikel has also been loaned to Vicenza, which I may have pronounced really badly. So what's the reaction around those particular departures, as Vancouver has had a lot more outgoing players than incoming? So what's your guys' perception of those two departures? And then as well, the fan base's perception.
For Mikel, for me, I know, Alex, you're quite high on Mikel. He seemed like the odd one out in the midfield for how Vanny wants to play. Under Mark DeSantis, Mikel, I think, was the starter and Leo Owusu was the backup. But I think Vanny likes more out of Leo Owusu, which then meant Mikel maybe didn't feature as much. And I don't see it as too big a loss, to be honest. I'd like better midfielders in there. We've got Alexandre, that's hopefully going to be fit and good to go. Pedro Viti, we haven't seen yet, who's now being described more as a central midfielder as opposed to the attacking midfielder that he was initially when he was signed. So I think you've got guys in there. It was a stacked position. If you can make money by moving someone on, I think it's good. I don't think he's one of those players that fans really cared too much either way, if he stayed, if he went. At the end of the season, we always do should we keep him, trade him, release him, whatever. I'd have been happy for him or Owusu to move on. If they both went, I'd have been happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd say from one side, it was a very shrewd piece of business. I think they needed to, just like Michael mentions, he didn't really fit in the system. I think under Mark DeSantos, in that the way Mark DeSantos played, it was a little more defensive. Daniel Mikel is a fantastic defensive midfielder. He's a very good tackler. I think he was one of the best tacklers in the league statistically. He's a very underrated passer. So he kind of fit that role of he'd sit at the base of the midfield, he'd tackle, he'd move the ball forward. On some games when Mark DeSantos was kind of running a 4-3-3 and he was sitting at the base of midfield, he was excellent in that role. But when Vanni Sartini came in and kind of switched to a, the two-man midfield where it's kind of two box-to-box number eights, Mikel wasn't really, he could play that role, but Leonard Owusu, he was funny under Mark DeSantos. Owusu was almost always miscast as what Mikel would play. He'd often play in Mikel's role, and Mikel kind of won the spot, like Michael mentions, because Mikel was better at it. While in the Vanni Sartini system, where it's more end-to-end, Owusu was better than Mikel at that role, so they kind of ended up swapping positions by the end of the year. And yeah, it just made sense to move on from him because he was making a lot of money. He fills an international spot, and If he was starting or if he was maybe at a different position, you can stomach that. But when you've already got Kyle Alexandre, an international, making a lot of money, you got Pedro Vite, like Michael mentions. You got to remember there's Russell Tybert, who he is an international, but he is starting to make a lot of money as his contract goes up year by year. You've got Leonard Owusu there already, who had such a good year last year. You want to keep him. You wouldn't want to move on from him if he was playing like he did. All of a sudden, Daniel Bikel is falling to what, 5th, 6th choice. And at that point, if he's that low, you'd rather, let a guy like a Michael Baldissimo get more minutes, someone, a local homegrown who you're high on, and some other players in that role. So it just made a lot of sense to make the move. And hopefully, if you're the Whitecaps, you're going to start rooting for Vicenza, because I think they were saying it was reported that there's a buy option if they survive in Serie B, because right now they're in the relegation zone. So if they survive, there's a buy option, which would be great news, because Transfermarkt has the fee at around $2 million, which is a lot of money. So if they can recoup some of that, if it's the full fee, even if it's half of that, you take it. So it's a good piece of business. You don't want to just have him rot away on the bench and cost you money eating up an international spot. So it was a move I'm happy with. I think if there was another MLS team who could have picked him up, they would have been very happy with him if they had him in the right role. But it wasn't meant to be here in Vancouver, and it was good for them to capitalize on a chance to move him out.
Yeah, and you can't really use him as a right back anymore, because I know he was used as a right back in that system.
He was good at a right back. I quite liked him at right back.
Yeah, but as wing back, I'm pretty sure he can't. He's not good enough, right? So yeah. Now we talked about the departures. Let's talk about the players that were signed. You signed Tristan Blackman for $475,000 GAM from expansion Charlotte FC. He was previously with the LAFC, of course. No other player has joined the squad yet. Are you guys worried, or do you think the current squad has what it takes to have another good season? To be honest, I'm going to be very, very honest and blunt. I don't like Tristan Blackman. He's not a player that I like at all. But, I'm curious to know your point of view regarding that. I don't know who wants to start.
Well, I'm on the fence about Blackman, I've got to say, because I'm not sure, because he can play right back, but Vanni's already said he sees him more as a right-sided centre-back and 3 in the back. And I think he does do better there. He's not a guy that you're going to get much of an offensive output from, which you don't need if he's playing centre-back. But if he was going to be playing right-back, I would have wanted a bit more out of my right-back. But then if they do go to a flat-back 4, I'm not necessarily sure that he's the guy that would be playing right-back anyway. I don't know. He's a good MLS player. It's a lot of money. Though, that you've given up for it. But as Axel told us during the week, we've got so much GAM sitting in the bank. We don't know what to do with it, basically, is how it seemed to come across. So if you don't spend it, it's like there's no point having it. So just give GAM to them. But as this comment says, GAM is useless if you don't use it. It's very true. There's no point. Like when Axel was sitting there on, was it Thursday? I don't even know what days of the week it is anymore. And he's like, oh yeah, well, we didn't need that because we've got so much GAM sitting in the bank. And I'm like, really? Shouldn't you be doing something with it? It does expire. And I don't know what you would want to be doing with it. But like going back to Blackman, it strengthened our defense, arguably. But then if you're playing 3 at the back, you've now got 5 centre backs. And if you include Jake Nowinski as a centre back, which Vanni is. So it's like, who's your best 3 out of that? And who do you get the best value from? And I think most of us would want Godoy to be playing if he can stay healthy. You've got Ranko, who seems to do well with Godoy. I like Florian Ljungwirth. That would be my back 3. So then Tristan doesn't fit in there, and you've just spent a lot of money on him. So then does he come in instead of Ranko? Does he come in instead of Florian? I don't know. I think it technically makes our defensive ranks stronger, but we need to strengthen some other areas of the team. We've got enough to keep doing it if we can still get goals. If Brian White is going to be ticking along, if Cava can get going, that's all great. The midfield is probably my big worry, both in what they're going to offer offensively, but also in the cover that they give defensively.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for the Blackman move personally, I think I like, just because heading in the offseason, I kind of we were talking on our show, kind of what do we see the needs of the team right now, and the three that we kind of identified were center back depth, left wing back depth, and like Michael said, central midfield depth. So while they haven't done anything or not central midfield depth, there's a lot of depth, like a central midfield starter. Say if, they have an open young DP spot right now, if you're going to spend it, I'd personally get a central, starting caliber central midfielder to play alongside Caio Alexandre. So the fact that they ticked off, one of those boxes with Tristan Blackman at center back depth, I don't mind it. I think he's domestic. It does cost a lot of jam, but if you compare some of the other trades, the one we kind of use as a parallel is Walker Zimmerman going to Nashville, who cost, I think it was $1 million jam at the time. Is he half of a Walker Zimmerman? He's probably more than half of a Walker Zimmerman. That's,
I think you're generous by saying he's half of Walker Zimmerman.
I say he's more than half of Walker Zimmerman. At least personally, I don't know. I know how you've stated your position on that. So I think, for the role that he fills on paper, like Michael says, the back three, I think if you're going off of last year, it's Youngworth, it's Godoy, it's Ranko. You have no complaints about that. No. Nerwinski showed to be capable in a depth role. If you assume that Gianfranco Facchinieri and Matteo Campagna are with the MLS second team, they're ready in case of an emergency, you're fine with that. But you kind of needed a number 4, number 5, especially with Andy Rose gone. And you know what? I think Tristan Blackman, he's an upgrade on Andy Rose. He's younger. He's a bit more mobile. The one thing that I like versus Andy Rose, because while Rose was a great leader at the back, sometimes playing out the back wasn't his forte, and Vanny obviously likes playing out of the back. Tristan Blackman is very good with the ball at his feet. Yeah. So for me, he kind of ticks off all the boxes. Is okay. He can be the number 4, number 5. He did cost a lot, but like you mentioned, if you've got, who knows how much jam the Whitecaps or gam the Whitecaps have. Yeah. Especially, and they just got $1 million more right now. So obviously they've got it, a lot of it sitting around. I'm just curious to see where he fits in the system, though, because if he ends up starting, I think he could have some value. I think sneakily, maybe depending on how Florian Youngworth comes into the season, or obviously we also know how healthy Eric Godoy can be at times, which is, spoiler alert, not a lot. Maybe he ends up having a role to start the season. So I like the Blackman trade. I think in terms of, do they need more off-season acquisitions? I'd say if they were to start the season tomorrow, you want some left wing back cover for 100%. I think that's why Kwame Awuwa of Forge has been brought in. And I think unless he has a disastrous trial, which from what I've seen from him in the one session I went to, he looked great. And the people have talked very highly of him so far. I think he's going to sign. And then in that case, I'm fine. Like I mentioned, bucket list, yes, I'd like to see them go hunt down a young DP, use that international spot they freed up with Daniel Bikel's departure. You sign a new starting midfielder to throw in the mix. Boom. But I think otherwise the acquisitions are fine. But also now we have to talk about the fact that they need, they might need some help in goal now that they've traded away Max Crepeau. Because I'm talking as if this was a week ago and we thought Crepeau was staying. So there is also a need in goal that we have to talk about.
And Evan Newton wants away now as well.
Thank you for this segment. Thank you for the transition for the next subject. And we're going to start a debate, okay? For those who listen to the show quite often, I'm someone that really likes to really bother Eve and always say the same sentence 20 million times during the same pod. And I always say, play the youth. So guys, there is a rumor right now with the Whitecaps, with Milan Borjan that could sign there as a goalkeeper. That it's a rumor. It's still there. I'm not sure it's really necessary, in my opinion, because I always say play the youth. And I don't really agree with you, Michael. I think that Thomas Hasal should be a starting goalkeeper this year, because if he doesn't get playing time, he's never going to get better. You're going to have another James Pantemis at 24, 25, who's only
making
had just one
mistakes.
season. Exactly, one season in the books. So right now the debate is, if you have a choice between Hasal and Borjan, knowing that Borjan is taking, of course, some sort of salary for sure, who would you go for, Borjan or Hasal? I'll let Michael start.
Borjan every day of the week, but that's not happening. Axel's already denied that he's coming, so
not happening.
Borjan.
Oh, wow. As simple as that. Okay, perfect. Alex.
I'm going Hasal. I'm going.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Play the youth.
I like Boyan a lot. He's the Canada goalkeeper. He's got the pedigree. For me, I just, he's not good with his feet. So if you're the Whitecaps and you're going from a guy like Max Crepeau to a guy like Milan Borjan, it's going to be some growing pains. And Milan Borjan is already in his mid-30s. Thomas Hasal, to be honest, when he came into MLS, he wasn't good with playing the ball at his feet. He was 21. Yeah. You don't have to be. He grew a lot in that area of his game last year. I mean, it's kind of one thing to say. He's a goalkeeper. His job's to use his hands, not his feet. So, it's a bit of a useless point. But I just like where Hasal is at his age. Personally, I'd love to see Boyan at TFC because in my head, I have a scene where you have Breza and Pentemis over in Montreal. You have Boyan at TFC. You have Hasal over in Vancouver. You have Crepeau down in LA. It would be fantastic and hopefully Dane Sinclair finds his way in Minnesota. I'd love to see all five at different teams playing. Yeah. So then we could have the easy comparable of, okay, who's actually doing better? Because now in the debate of Crepeau versus Boyan, it's easy. Oh, Boyan's playing at a higher level. He plays in the Champions League. At least that's in Herdman's eyes, how he views it. I don't necessarily agree. Well, if they were all playing in the same league, it would be pretty fun to see in this year ahead of the World Cup who would actually be the better goalkeeper, the better three goalkeepers, and who would deserve to be in the squad, assuming they make a World Cup, knock on wood, and all that. So that's my dream scenario. But in terms of Hasal over Boyan for the Whitecaps, I'd pick Hasal.
I love that. I love your answer, because really, if we get Crepeau, Borjan, Pentemis, or Breza, Sinclair having a starting job, that would be amazing for the Canadian national team, because I think they'll push each other. They'll just push each other to achieve, even to be greater and to be better. And I think it's going to be awesome for the Canadian national team. One small question, a follow-up question on that. If Marco Carducci comes to the to the Whitecaps, would you guys think he could go ahead of Thomas Hasal? Who wants to start? That's a tough one.
Well, see, I was talking about this to the guys that we do our show with, not on the show, but we're just chatting in our group chat. The thing is, the Whitecaps have already come out and said Hasal's their number one. Nice. So they've now stated that. So if you're bringing in a second keeper, you're basically saying to that keeper, you're not really going to be playing unless Hasal gets injured or has a bad run.
Maybe
or
cup
somehow,
games.
Yeah, cup games. Maybe one cup game, depending on how we play. But it's hard to tempt a good keeper to come. So why would Marco Carducci or Callum Irvin give up being a starter in the CPL to come and just be a backup? Yeah, you're playing in MLS 2. So unless you want to go down the Mo Farsi route of, well, if I'm in an MLS 2 team, I've maybe got a better pathway to get into MLS than in CPL. I don't think a goalkeeper is going to do that. And they've both just signed new contracts as well. I would have taken either Carducci or Irvin ahead of Thomas Hasal. And I don't want this to come across that I don't like Thomas Hasal, because I do. And I've watched Thomas Hasal come through the academy ranks, but I've also watched Marco Carducci coming through the academy, and I've watched Callum Irvin coming through the academy, and I know what good goalkeepers they are. And I just feel where they are in their careers right now, they would be the better goalkeeper for the Whitecaps. And yet Hasal has to somehow learn and get minutes. That's what this MLS 2 team is for, in my view. And if you've got two young keepers that were given a fair shake, I think you could bring someone like Carducci in. But as soon as you said Hasal's our number one, I just think it makes it hard to get that. The guy I think we might make a play for, though, I don't know how you guys would feel about that, is Jonathan Sirwa.
Oh.
Because do you go and say to him, do you want another season with Valor? Or do you want to come and challenge Hasal, but you'll be getting these guaranteed minutes in MLS 2?
No, that's unfair. He's 18, man. He's 18. He's not 21. First of all, he's 18. He only has a CPL season in the books. That's all. Never had one start in MLS. I don't think it's like apple and orange.
A very good season, though, Eddie.
Yeah.
Very good one.
Yeah. Goalkeeper
of the year for good reason.
And we've seen what happened when we kind of let our keepers to their own devices, and you guys know it more than us almost in Vancouver. So
Yeah.
I mean,
And we had
Pantin
him for one game in the MLS's back
Yes,
thing, so
true.
we've got that connection.
He's already backed up
Yes,
Thomas
exactly.
Hasal
He
before.
knows the squad intimately.
No, but seriously, if this was a situation, yes, I would go with Jonathan Sirois. I'm someone that really wants to see the young players play, get minutes, and get their chance. And unfortunately in Montreal, we didn't see that a lot in the last few years. Maybe last year and this year a bit more, like 2021 and 2020 a bit more, but like it's not enough. We need those young players to have minutes, even if it's like 10-15 minutes at the end of the game for field players. And for goalkeepers, yes, they have to get minutes. It's not normal to see a goalkeeper get a starting job at 24 only. It's just not normal. So yeah, I would go with Sirois if we were in that situation, but we're not. So
I mean, to hop on your question, the original question, Carducci, Hasal, I think if like Michael says, the situation's complicated, but pretend Axel Schuster doesn't say all that. Yeah, I'd take Carducci just because he has the what is that now? 3 years of pro experience with Cavalry, plus he also had experience as in the old Whitecap second team back in the day. So he's got the pro experience. He's a great goalkeeper, national team call-ups. I'd take him right now. And that's not a slight on Hasal. I think that would be a fantastic partnership to kind of push each other, and maybe it turns into a 1A, 1B type situation. Who knows? But like you mentioned, I'm happy Michael brought up Sirois because I was going to bring him up if he didn't. I mean, if you're the Whitecaps, you have all this supposed extra gam. Could you not just call Montreal, be like $200K for Jonathan Sirois, take it or leave it? If you're Montreal and it's your third goalkeeper, it might be tempting to take a lot of.
I don't think so, because the errors of the past have tainted so much.
Yeah.
Because
I think they'd riot because my opinion is, no, I mean, Montreal fans are supporters because really, none of the architects of the Maxime Crepeau to Vancouver trade are still with Montreal. They've all departed for good reason.
Yeah.
But Montreal fans have not forgotten. They still talk and talk about it as though it is a wound as fresh as yesterday. And I think, most Montreal fans as well are wise enough to know that James Pantemis, unfortunately, his progress has suffered from a lack of playing time. But they see Jonathan Sirois getting loaned out and getting a full season in with Valour at age 18. And I think, my opinion is, a lot of Montrealers are kind of like, okay, James Pantemis is here, but Jonathan Sirois is coming in hot. So I don't think they would tolerate another instance of Vancouver swooping in.
Yeah.
Chan with an interesting comment. He wants Pantemis to be loaned to Vancouver. Would you guys agree with that?
Well? Yeah,
I'd take either one. I mean, there's no chance you get Brezza just because he's on loan from Bologna. But I mean, Pantemis isn't a bad shout. But yeah, the Sirois one, it's a good point, Eve. I think certainly if Montreal makes that move, it's a disaster from a fan standpoint. I agree. I'm just wondering if you're Vancouver and you have all this supposed extra gam, could you not? Because the thing is with Sirois, it's if you're Montreal, it'd be tough to gauge, because while you obviously want long term, maybe in 2-3 years you see Sirois as a starter. If someone comes and pays way more than his market value now, you can't at least help but listen. So maybe if 200K is not enough, you throw 300, 400, 500K. All of a sudden, that is very tempting. And if they do that, that's a risky move for Vancouver. It's a risky move for Montreal. I just think if the guy like Sirois, what he's shown, I think it could be fun if you're Vancouver to maybe, call Montreal and make them sweat a bit with an offer like that. Just put it on the table and kind of see, okay, what do they view? How do they really view Sirois? Because like Michael mentions, having a goalie of Sirois' caliber, it's too bad that the Whitecaps, they have a guy like Max Anchor, who maybe in a year or two after the MLS next two, he could be the next Jonathan Sirois. You guys might hear about him a lot more in the future. He's trained with the first team. I think he's just turned 18 or he's 17. He's a great goalkeeper from what I've seen. He's not ready. So a guy like the Whitecaps could use a guy like Sirois, where he's 18, 19, has that year or two of pro experience in their belt. It would be tempting to at least look at it while because if not, it might just make sense. They get a veteran and then they have Anchor be that guy in 2 years anyways.
Listen, if Blackman is worth 475,000 in GAM, I think Sirois is worth $1 million with the potential that he has. So,
Okay.
So that would bump Crepeau up to $3 million. In that
I was gonna say, I definitely think, they would. I don't think the wool would be pulled over Montreal's eyes for a second time from a business standpoint. So I think it would go very, very, very interesting offer for Jonathan Sirois, but it would be, again, for development of Canadian keepers, it would definitely be a super interesting move. Completely agree.
Yeah, and don't forget, our current administration has a completely different view of MLS talent or ingrown talent than Rémi Garde had. Rémi Garde, I don't think he had that much respect for MLS, graduates of academies, and we saw also what we do in when we went to draft. We would pass all over the place or just trade our first round picks, every year. So I think the administration right now understands the talent that there is in our country, and would treat it much differently. So even with 200K, 250, 300K of GAM, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't give Sirois away. No.
Also, with the Crepeau situation, there was the whole Mark DeSantis aspect, which again has come into play at LAFC. Yeah. You have to think so. Yeah. And
there was Evan Bush too, who was doing good at that moment. He was doing very good, and we had Clément Diop, not far. It was a tough one, but still, it's not a good look. A couple of years later, so it's easy to say afterwards, though, for sure.
Exactly. Like I said, Montrealers have not been able to let go of it. But anyway, what was I going to say? Just a quick question regarding kind of the other end of the field at striker. Obviously, we did touch on it a little bit earlier. Brian White came in halfway through the year last year, and he had a very, very respectable return. 12 goals in 26 appearances is great for a Brian White who's not expected to be your striker. And then on the flip side, we have Lucas Cavallini, who was club record signing in 2019, Canadian international. It's on paper, it looks like the best player you could possibly have recruited at the time. But unfortunately, it just has not come off for him in Vancouver since he's arrived. He's only tallied 9 goals since his arrival in Vancouver, unfortunately. So my question to you guys, with knowing that, Ryan Gauld is there to provide a full season of fantastic service, who knows what's going to be coming in across us from the wings? We don't know yet, obviously, but nonetheless, is it going to be Brian White's season as the starter because he earned it last year, or will Lucas Cavallini be given a shot at redemption? And since we started with Michael last time, maybe Alex, let's hear from you.
All right. I mean, it's a very tough question, Eve. It's a good one because it's one we're also wondering a lot in Vancouver. You ask people. I think to start the season, I think we'll see Brian White. I think it's only fair after last year, at least maybe not the season, even just preseason, that we'll see White. He scored all the goals. He fits the system. But I think long term, I do want to see Lucas Cavallini this year, and I do think that he has something up his sleeve. I just think he needs to find some consistency. Last year, it was rough with the injuries, the Canada situation, and then he got injured possibly at the worst time because that was the time when Ryan Gauld came in and he didn't get a chance to develop the chemistry that Brian White ended up developing with Ryan Gauld. So I think Lucas Cavallini, I'm going to go Cavallini over the course of the year can find his form. He looks motivated. I think as long as he puts his injuries behind him, he realizes this is a World Cup year. This is kind of a make or break year. Canada's getting all these guys in. 2 months ago, for example, Ike Ugbo wasn't in the picture. He is in now. Who knows? What if Daniel Jebison gets in the picture, say, as an example, all of a sudden Cavallini falls down the depth chart. He's not in the World Cup. That would hurt him a lot. So I think he's going to come in strong, and I think over the course of the year, if he gets a chance, he will take it. If you're the Whitecaps, I mean, it's a tough situation. You pick. Do you pick White? You pick Cavallini? There's been talk of playing both together, which could be interesting, could work, could not work. But if I'm going to go between the two, I'm kind of banking on Cavallini just because he's going to get his chance. And I think he's such a streaky scorer that once he finds that first goal, he'll find a few more. And then we'll start to remember the Cavallini of old. But who knows? Soccer is a weird sport. Maybe Vancouver just isn't the spot for him. He'll be cursed and it won't work out. But I'll go with Cavallini.
Fair enough. Michael, what do you got to say?
Kind of the opposite. I think they're both streaky players, and whoever goes on a good run is going to get those minutes. But you've also got Diber Caicedo. I want to see him somehow involved in this team, and my dream would be White, Caicedo, Gold behind them. I think that would be a fantastic front three. I think we will see both Cava and White to start off the season, and then it's up to whoever performs best, the two of them, I think, that's going to hold on to that position, and then Caicedo will slowly kind of take over. I'd like a tall striker to play beside either Cava or White to kind of knock the ball down to them, because they're both best in the 6-yard box.
I'm like,
If
there's
has an idea for you.
There's a tall striker located here in Montreal, actually. You know, he's definitely experienced. He's got a lot of goals in his boots already. Just if you don't look at last year's stats.
So you'd want to keep him, obviously.
Yeah,
No.
That's the thing.
Why would you give a guy like that up?
He's only a time player, you know. He doesn't cost much, right?
Maybe
if you attach Jonathan Sirois.
Yeah,
you can dream, Alex. You can dream.
Actually, I might be a smidgen more amenable in that case.
I think
I'm going to sacrifice him.
I do agree with Alex, though, that like Cava cares more about the national team, I think, than club teams. And he wants to be at this World Cup. And the only way he's going to get there is if he is in form and scoring goals. I don't think he'll be at the Whitecaps past the summer. I think he'll go. I think there'll be a transfer. I try to think of who might want to trade for him within MLS, and I don't know if anyone would take him. You're wanting to negotiate a swap deal here? We give you Cava, we take a striker and a goalkeeper, maybe?
Yeah, we'll give you.
Can definitely offer you the striker,
but not Sirois.
We'll have a word with Annie at training this week, won't we, Alex? We'll
get in his ear and let him
start whispering. Yeah,
Cava's not going anywhere. We keep getting told, but I genuinely think he will. I think he'll end up back in Mexico.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
He'll be El Tanque again. Let's move on with the last question regarding the Whitecaps. What is the objective for the Whitecaps this season? Will the club and the supporter be satisfied with making the playoffs only, or is the goal making a deeper run, maybe silverware? What do you guys think?
Maybe like pass the first round of Canada Championship.
Yeah, no Pamadou Ka this year to eliminate you. So, but you might have a chance. I'm joking.
Cavalry's still there. Don't forget that.
True.
Yeah, Tommy's already done us in the past.
True.
It's Edmonton's time now. Alan Koch will come and knock us out.
Oh man, I'll be very embarrassed if Alan Koch can win a game against you guys.
He will be up for that if he gets to play. I'm pretty sure. I think we've got to be looking at the treble, Supporters Shield, MLS Cup, Canadian Championship. Whoa. Anything less.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
I am kidding.
Okay.
I was with you, man.
What's in the air over there in BC?
Maybe MLS 2 Championship. That might be our best chance. Even then, I doubt it. I think if they make the playoffs, I'd be happy with that. You want to go further than last year. I genuinely feel last year was a waste in the end, because you look at how those playoffs played out, and if we'd got past Sporting Kansas City, I fancied us to make a run, and I do feel it is a bit of a wasted opportunity. But I think that was us at our peak. If we get into the playoffs without strengthening the team any further, I think that would be a big achievement. and Canadian Championship. It should always be. We keep getting told the club value the Champions League and they really want to be in that competition. They don't look like they do, but that defeat to Pacific, that was a strong team to put out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was.
if we didn't make the playoffs and we won that, I'd be happy. I don't think the general fan base would. I think they would probably want a deeper playoff run.
I mean, yeah, I think for me, I think if you're looking fan base wise, I think playoffs is a must just because it's a North American thing. You just want to get in the dance. Anything can happen. I think internally they want to host a home playoff game, which is obviously, the buzz that would create. We saw it last year when they just had that last game against Seattle, which wasn't a home playoff game, but it was a win in your in game. The city showed up for that. So they kind of want something like that. I think personally, myself, I just think make the playoffs. I'm looking at the West next year. You've just strengthened LAFC, who obviously they have a new coach, so maybe they won't be as good as we're maybe thinking in our head, but also they're still LAFC. They've got any team with Carlos Vela, and obviously if Chicho Arango keeps playing like he is, and there's also Nashville's in the West. We keep forgetting they're not going to be an easy team. LA
and they've
Galaxy,
got a lot of game and tan to spend this as well.
Oh, exactly. Obviously, Montreal helped contribute to a good percent of that with the Alistair Johnson trade. So you got Nashville to worry about. You've got a year of second year of Greg Vanney and LA Galaxy. That's going to be a worry. You got another year of Austin starting to figure things out. Yeah. The West is going to be a dogfight next year. So I think personally, if you just make the playoffs, go from there, win a round, I think it's a goal. It's such a crapshoot though with the new 1-game playoff series because you see with Seattle. Seattle was excellent all year, and then you lose in the first round, your season's a wash. So I think personally, you just win a round in the playoff, and then like Michael says, the Canadian Championship is a must. I am so curious to see how Vanni Sartini handles it, because if we're going to go back to what we said at the top of the show, we talked about his rotation. I think that's going to be one area where this is going to come in handy, because Mark DeSantos, for whatever reason, it just didn't work out for him with cup football. Even though he wouldn't rotate the squad, it didn't work out for him. I think Vanni Sartini is going to have a better way of approaching these cup ties, no matter who they play. And I think if you look at their squad, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to compete for the Canadian Championship. Obviously, they should be beating CPL teams. Forge and Pacific will always give them their run for their money. You look over at Montreal and Toronto, there's no reason why, last year the Whitecaps were the team that had the most MLS points among the three. Toronto's got a new coach, Bob Bradley. Obviously, he's a good coach. He'll figure things out. But unless we're seeing Lorenzo Insigne grace the fields of the Canadian Championship, I think Vancouver should have a shot at least going to the final. I won't say winning, because it's Vancouver. You have to take one step at a time. They got to stop. They got to stop losing the CPL teams in the first round before dreaming of lifting silverware. So I'd say final of the Canadian Championship, win a playoff round. I think that's a great season. You're writing about how that was everything that you expected and more.
Nice, very nice. That kind of rounds off our Vancouver preview, guys. Thank you so much. Guys, we'll keep you because we have some Canada news and a lot of talks too. So I'll jump right into the men's national team traveling to San Pedro Sula for the game away on the 27th. The roster will be announced tomorrow on Monday, so we don't have the roster, but we can speculate a bit, guys, and I'll go one after the other. Do you expect a pretty similar roster? We know that Davies is out, Estacio is out with COVID. Do you expect a lot of differences in that roster? Any surprises, or pretty much 1 or 2 changes for those who are out right now? I'll start with you, Eve.
So obviously, we're going to need to compensate for sure in the midfield, notably for the lack of Steve Eustachio. And funnily enough, we have our friends from Vancouver here, because I was not wondering if maybe Russell Tybert could somehow find his way back into the squad. I don't know. Like, I'm dreaming. I'm like, who? Maybe he's kind of got a leadership type mentality, veteran,
There's a lot of head shaking going on.
I know, you're shooting me down real hard. I was like,
2 months ago, I'd take it based on the form he was in. He was genuinely in great form. I just think already it's the
preseason
off
form.
season. You might be a
Mm.
bit. It's just there's a move where you'd rather take guys in Europe
Yeah.
who are in form, and it's just
No,
unlucky
completely.
for Russell Tybert. If it was 2 months ago, he would have been in with a lock, but that's just the
Yeah.
reality of it.
No, I agree with you there for sure. But no. Overall, though, like I don't expect too many surprises other than hopefully a midfielder, central midfielder of note, of surprise.
I'm curious because I know that Alex, you follow a lot, the European soccer where Canadians are involved, and we're talking a lot. There's a lot of talk around Mitrovic. That could be someone that could slot in. I think he plays a bit, in an attacking midfielder role, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious to know your thoughts about him or Harry Patton, who could be the second option, the two young guys that we don't really know much about. Can we see those two slot in for Eustachio, not as a starter, but as the 5th, 6th midfielder in the squad?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be certainly a good move to bring them in. I think Harry Patton, he's more of a number 8, so he could be closer to the Eustachio replacement, kind of more of an attacking number 8. Mitrovic is, he's more of an attacking midfielder winger, which isn't a bad thing to have in the squad. I'd certainly take him. The problem is with Eustachio, it's just there's almost no one in the pool right now who kind of provides what he does, because he's the number 6 who he not only does he defend, which, you got guys like Atiba Hutchinson and Samuel Piet who can play that role, but the way he attacks, Piet and Hutchinson just don't really have that in the game. Hutchinson does, but he's 38. You can't rely on him to play all 3 games like Eustachio would. So I think it would be good to bring in a Mitrovic or a Patton because of depth, and I think with this news we'll probably see one of them. But otherwise, the problem is for losing Eustachio. People are saying you're almost happier losing Davies, not because you want to lose Davies, but you have closer like-for-like replacements, whereas there's no one who replaces what Eustachio does.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Seriously, I thought about Mitrovic and Patton because they're, in the middle of their season, so I think they'll be, more match ready. But for me, someone that really has to be more often within the team is Noble Okello. I think that this player from TFC has a bright future ahead of him. He reminds me a bit, and of course he's really far from that level, but he reminds me a bit of Abu Dhabi in his good days. I think he can reach that potential. He can reach that level at one day if he continues on working hard and be that kind of player that really plays a bit deep, but is able to go forward. Also, Abu Dhabi used to go a bit forward a bit more often. Pretty sure, Michael, you remember Abu Dhabi, the good Abu Dhabi, not the one that's injured, that's been injured for like 5 years in the last 5 years of his career, right?
Yeah, I think you've probably got more chance of having someone like Okello because I think it might be a domestic guy that they add for that depth. Just because I do worry that there might be a couple of surprise omissions on this, and it's easy then to just put it down to COVID or whatever, or travel. But someone like Patton, Ross County are in a relegation fight just now, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to really want their guy flying away for a couple of weeks. And little niggles suddenly appear, or injuries, or he's had this test, we have to wait and see what the results are. I think there could be a few surprises, and I think it could be bulked up by MLS guys or CPL.
Well, it's good. I'll hop on that point because it's a good one from Michael, and it's something I've been researching. This window is such a complication because for the first time, in a while, a lot of big leagues aren't pausing for this break. So they do have to release their players. It's an official FIFA window. But because UEFA isn't actually having a window this time, a lot of the European leagues, I think it's, just the Premier League, the Bundesliga, like the big leagues are stopping. But the Portuguese league is still going. The Scottish league, like Michael mentions, the Belgian league. Canada has a lot of players in those leagues. So I also do wonder if some teams are going to flex their muscle because, yes, they're mandated to release it. But, yeah, if you're Ross County, you say we're in a relegation battle. We want to keep Harry. Canada says we want him. Well, what's to say, in 3 months when you need Harry Patton, all of a sudden he's conveniently got, ankle injuries every time the window comes around, or I guess now you say he's got, he's in COVID protocol or something like that. So if you're Herdman, I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we've waited so long for this squad. We're 4 or 5 days out from the game. We haven't heard anything. It's because if you're John Herdman, you're probably working the phones, negotiating with teams, saying, okay, we need this player. Well, this club's like, we also need this player. We want to play ball. And it's kind of one of the things we see in modern international soccer, where there's this. Before it was pretty simple. There was, you call a guy, he comes in, he plays. Now it's okay. You have to manage these relationships with clubs, and I think it's going to be such a complication that we're seeing already rear its head. And like Michael says, I think when the squad drops, we might see 1 or 2 surprises because of that.
Yeah, and you see, guys, one thing, I was just checking on Harry Patton, and, the last time he really played and was on the pitch was on the 15th of December. The last 4 games, he hasn't been even on the bench. And I don't see any injury reports. So, maybe Ross County will not be that hesitant into releasing him because he's not playing anymore in the starting 11. I don't know.
I don't know.
But then, what's his form like?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Like a lot of the Scottish clubs have been hit with COVID outbreaks, so you don't know, he maybe already had something like that, because a lot of it hasn't been announced. I know my team in Scotland were down to the bare bones, and they still had to play games because they were hit because they had an under-20 team. Okay. If they didn't have the under-20 team, they wouldn't have had to play, so they were penalised for having an under-20 team. So Ross County obviously have an under-20 team as well. So I mean, he might be missing for a reason, or maybe he's had a knock that we hadn't heard about. But
interesting. So, guys, I got a question. I was looking it up. I didn't find it anyways. Is it going to be full crowd in San Pedro Sula? Is there any restrictions for anyone knows?
I
don't understand enough to try and figure it out. And honestly, like, let's face it, these restrictions can change like on a dime, right? Exactly. So at the same time, like what we talk about tonight could not be true tomorrow.
No, because obviously there's the San Pedro Sula factor. When we go over there, it's always very difficult. Playing in a half empty or empty stadium would definitely help us a lot. But still, it's always tough to go to Honduras. We know, well, history has shown it by the past. We won't go back on that. But I mean, if you look back at the game, it was our first qualifier. It was the 1-1 draw with Honduras. Not a great performance by Canada. What do you expect against Honduras? And with the omissions of Davies and Estacio, do we think about some tactical twitches? And obviously there's a very physical aspect of the game against Honduras. All this combined, how should Canada approach the game, generally speaking? Hadi?
Listen, I don't know why, but I think it's time for Canada to use something else than the back 3 formation. I would love to see a 4-4-2. I know that it's maybe not the time to really change your tactics, but with Davies not here, Eustaquio not here, playing with 3 midfielders, it's going to be a bit tough. Because you're not sure who to put, like you guys mentioned a bit earlier. So I think a 4-4-2 would be wise, because you could put Larin and David up front, and in the middle you can put Hutchinson and Kay, and on the wings you do have some players with Buchanan that could be, of course, will be a starter. He gave an assist today, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty nice, and the back 4, I think it would make sense to go with a 4-4-2. And I think that every time we've had, and I think we talked about it, Alex, in your pod when you invited me one day, when we play against the strong teams, we have a tendency to play with a 4-4-2, and we're pretty good with the 4-4-2 system. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I would go with the 4-4-2. I think that the 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 is not really what we need now with the players missing.
I mean, it's a good point. I mean, if I'm going to return first to, like Sam said, first time they played Honduras, I think it was a great learning lesson game. I think obviously looking back, you wonder, oh, what if they could have won, where they'd be now. But I think they learned a lot of lessons. I think they learned that, these teams are going to be physical, even if they're maybe not the most, especially a team like Honduras, who this isn't the Honduras of 8 years ago, maybe talent-wise or system-wise, but they're still always going to, they're going to give you a fight. And I think Canada, they kind of learned a lesson. If I'm not mistaken, they kind of came out that game with the 4-2-4. They kind of played Buchanan, Davies, Laren, David. They kind of went for what I like to call, they put all their Avengers on the field. But then the problem was no one got them the ball. They struggled. It was a 1-1 game. So I think if I'm looking at this game, I agree with you, Hattie, in the sense that I would like to see a back four. But also, for me, I'd like to see, if at the same time, what we learned in that game is I think you need to put a 3-man midfield, because the problem is Canada only played the two of Eustachio and Hutchinson, and they got dominated that game physically because it was just, they had too much work to do. The Honduran midfielders were just too physical. And now we have to remember they're going to be adding in Albert Ellis, who didn't even play that game. So if the formation I'd probably play if I were Herdman was a 3-5-2, just so you can still get your three midfielders. You can get that back three. And most importantly, you can get two strikers. You can play some combination of David, Laren, Ugbo, whoever you think fits best into that. Just because I think if you're Canada, you want to dominate the midfield against Honduras, but B, you don't want to get hit on the counter, because last time when they played, they didn't get hit on the counter, so they ticked off one of those boxes, but they got dominated in midfield.
Yeah, no, I'm Team Alex on this one.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm curious to know who would be your midfield, like the three midfielders that you would choose in the 3-5-2. Would you go with Eustachio, Hutchinson, and Piet, or who?
Eustachio?
Let's say, obviously.
I mean, Hutchinson.
That was
Hutchinson, K, and Piet. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, no, I think with what you have, I think the two Hutchinson starts for sure. He's in form, and I think. For me, I pick Osorio just because I think they missed someone like him against Honduras, that kind of link player from, all their quote-unquote Avengers to the midfielders. So I think you put Osorio. And between K and Piet, I think you start with K, and then if it isn't working, you bring in Piet. Just because at least with K, Osorio, you got guys who can move the ball forward, and Hutchinson can kind of hold things down. But if it's not working, okay, you bring on Piet, and you kind of go more defensive with Piet, Hutchinson, and Osorio just in front of the
Interesting.
two.
Yeah. Interesting.
Or I would even say,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say for the sake of, preserving fitness levels for, especially with the travel factor, I would think if somehow they were able to take a 2-goal lead, I would definitely be starting K. And then as soon as it looks like things are kind of hopefully in the bag for Canada, I'd be taking him off and probably putting on a Piet to preserve fitness levels so that he can.
To be honest, I'm really not very optimistic for that game, for the first game. Not at all. So I would go. You're traumatized. Yeah, I am. I would go with Piet. I would go with Piet and not K, because we need that defensive presence. I think in that. If we're going with a 3-man midfield, I would go with Piet for sure. I don't know, Michael, if you're Team Alex or Team Hattie this time.
I'm Team Hattie. I'd go 4-4-2. I'd have Piet in there. I think this is going to be a defensive outing. I don't think we'll see Laren and David start together. I think we'll get maybe a little bit from each of them, because they're going to be looking at that US game. Yeah. Because I think Herdman's going to look at this and think, okay, if we're going to lose one game in this window, what would be the one that if we lost it, wouldn't be 2 up or down? Probably El Salvador, but that's probably not going to happen, because you think they've got the better of El Salvador. Honduras, they might not win. So it's like, I think he'll go for a draw. He'll be happy with a draw. And he'll save some of the top guys for that US game. Because you've also got to think as well, like Laren and David, they're coming off having COVID. You don't know how bad they had it, how low they were. Some folk I know that's had it, it's had no energy for a couple of weeks. Yeah. See, they're traveling a long way as well to get here. So you might just want to put it down. Piet seems a good option. So I don't know. I would go quite defensive for this. And if you need to mix it up, if you're a goal down, you bring on these guys later on. That's maybe going to be more attacking and change of formation then.
Yeah. No, it's going to these games against Honduras, it's rarely like a tactical show or a tactical battle between managers. It's more of a fight in these games, and it's great games to watch, but it's difficult games for Canada every time. So, I think John Herdman has to think that when he's preparing his team, and that's why I think Piet should be maybe for that particular game, and you go maybe Piet, Kay, and Hutchinson even maybe, and Azorio for the US game. That would be cool, because I think it's gonna be much more of an open game than against Honduras. But either way, it's a tough window for Canada. These travels away to Honduras and to Salvador are never easy. US at home, obviously, it's gonna be another very tough game. But I think it's a defining one. Once this window is done, man, you can really set your you have your mind set on what's going to happen. Is it automatic qualification, or are you going through through the playoff?
They've surely got to be top four, so they've definitely got either both feet or 1 feet in at the World Cup at this point. The thing with Herdman that I worry about, though, is he's always talking about exercising ghosts, or he's always got these games. So with the women's team, he wanted to beat the US so badly, and he never got to do it.
I know.
And it meant so much then when they did it in the men. And I do wonder if at the back of his head he's got this 8-1, and it's like, this is our chance to go down and exercise some of these demons, and if he might just go for it down there. But you risk so many things. You risk injuries, you risk sending offs, you risk... We've seen this as a very volatile team at times, and the guys like Max Crepeau has been fired up in these qualifiers. Larea is just waiting to get sent off in one of these games at some point. So teams are going to see that, and especially when they're the home team, they're going to poke these guys.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, guys, what is the target for Canada? What's the minimum target for Canada with these 3 games?
Points-wise, you mean?
Points-wise, exactly. For me, if we get 4 points out of these 3 games, I'll be happy. I'll be a happy camper. I'll be with Davies and Eustachio missing. For me, 4 points is great. That means that we win at least maybe Salvador, get a draw against the US, or maybe win in Salvador and win against the US and get a draw in Salvador. I'm not really high on San Pedro Sula. I'm pretty sure we're going to lose there, but that's my opinion. But I think 4 points will be pretty good for Canada at this stage of the competition. What do you guys think, Sam?
I think the objective is 5. Because we've not lost yet, so I don't think you should
want to lose.
No, you should never, But I think it's fair to think that 3, you get a win and you shoot for 2 draws. Hopefully you win one of these projected draws and you go out with 7 points. But I think 5 would be acceptable. But still, you're top of your group, so you have to think that way. You have to think like you're bossing the group, and you want to go out there and win every game. But the situations are that probably our 2 best players are out right now, so I think 5 points should be acceptable. Yeah,
I think that with VAR coming in to the CONCACAF qualifiers, Canada has been hard done by, to be honest, on several calls, really dating back to the World Cup. I am salty. Okay. And so I think with VAR coming in, I think Canada actually might stand a chance of getting some of those more iffy calls going in their favor with some additional review. So I'm going for 6 points.
Yeah, I'm going 5. I think I agree with Sam with 5. And I think as long as you don't drop any points to any teams, you're going to be in a great position. I think if you look at 5, just, it doesn't even have to be against anyone. The nice thing is if you drop points to the US, that's fine. They're probably going to make the World Cup, and Canada should all go well. You don't want to be giving up points to the Hondurases and the El Salvadors, at least not more than 1. So I think if you have to go down there and make it a bar fight and make it a 0-0,
yes, that's
good. It's gonna. So I think 5 points is good. Plus, that would mean that I think if I'm not mistaken, Canada, the whole, you win all your games at home, pick up points away, they're over where they need to be on that. So if they get 5 points out of a window at 2 away games, 1 home game, they'll still be above the bar. I think 5 points would be a good pick up for them, considering the scope of games. And I mean, we could talk about the specifics of the game, beating the US, what that would mean, beating El Salvador, beating Honduras. Because, for example, one thing, I was doing the math. Did you know if Canada beats Honduras, Honduras cannot mathematically catch them.
Yeah.
That is something to
Oh, wow.
consider.
Yes.
That would
Like
be
a point
awesome.
of pride.
So actually, I was going to throw this back to you guys. I'll switch it up here. I know usually you guys ask me the questions, but I'll ask you guys the questions.
Of course, go ahead.
Because of that, do you maybe target different games? Because some people have been saying if you lose to the U.S., it doesn't mean anything. They're going to probably make the World Cup. You're not giving up points to a team that's in the race, whereas Honduras, they're last. If you give them a win, all of a sudden their hopes are revived. They're back in the fight. You win, you can mathematically ensure they're not a problem for you. Does that maybe change the games you prioritize in this window, and you go a bit harder for Honduras and El Salvador and try to get harder wins, and you maybe, not saying you sacrifice the U.S. game, but you go in and maybe you're not taking it like you did the Azteca game. You're maybe going in a little more dogfight, or is that you feel that's too risky of a game to play? It's just a curious question I had.
A lot of people tell me that I'm very passionate. And I am very passionate. So for me, losing against the U.S. or throwing the game against the U.S. is unacceptable. It's our rival. We cannot lose the game or just give away a game against the U.S. It's not possible. That team has had our number for 35 years. We finally beat them, and we're not going to make it easy for them anymore. I know that I can't really think logically when when we have a game against the US. Like, we have to beat them. Like, we have to do everything we can to beat them. And for me, even if, yes, if we win against Honduras, yes, they can't catch us. That's for sure. I completely understand that. But there's other teams there. Like, okay, if Honduras beats us, do you think they're going to win all the other games, the other remaining games? They haven't been good. So I prefer to give points to the last team in the group than give them to our rival that's, fighting for us for the top three positions. Well, so I don't know.
I'll counter just by saying that Jamaica looked done and dusted. Canada did give them that point at home, and since then they've kind of climbed up the table. So it is CONCACAF. They have Albert Ellis, who in the form he is one of the best players in CONCACAF. I'm just saying.
True. And Albert Ellis just scored a goal today with Bordeaux against Strasbourg, and a very beautiful goal, by the way. And he's a very, very good player. In France, they're starting to see who Albert Ellis is. So I'm quite happy because it's MLS, right? It's a MLS player. So whenever I talk about MLS, people are more attentive to what I have to say now. But yeah, for me, I think the game that we should not lose points is in El Salvador. Like, we have to win in El Salvador, and it's going to be pretty tough because the crowd there is like kind of crazy, right? So we have to win in El Salvador. And again, I choose to put our starting 11 against the US. I can't go against that. Yeah. I just can't.
And I think that's how John Herdman's going to look at it as well. Yeah. Because he's just got this US obsession, and he wants Canada to be treated on the same terms as them and everything like that. I would not be surprised if we see 3 draws in this window.
Okay.
I think 5 realistically is what you're looking for. However that comes, I think it could come draw, win in El Salvador, but 3 draws, I think, could also be a realistic thing. And it's not the end of the world.
Of course not.
Because it's all we need to avoid is having to go to Panama in that last game needing something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we have to do that, then we are in trouble because they look really good.
Yes.
They have been a big surprise.
Yeah.
I know there's all these rivalries, but in CONCACAF, there's rivalries with everyone, right? So the US, you have Mexico. I mean, and it's a home game. I know Canadians are going to pay to go to the stadium and sit in that freezing Hamilton winter cold, but I mean, it's not such of a problem dropping points against the US. You want to step on the teams that are not in that top 4, and because the only idea of the qualification is going to Qatar, So whatever happens, you have to have in mind that you need to take the plane to Qatar. So I think the 2 games that you should really, really put your guts on is away to Honduras, away to Salvador, and as as shitty as it is, maybe if you go a bit weaker against the States at home, it's not gonna be cool for the fans. It's not a good look against the States. But if you're able to keep that, that your stronger squad for these 2 away games, and beat down these teams that are not in the top 4, I think that's what's more important, because that's how you'll get to Qatar. So sorry, man. I know it's not good for Canada, playing that type of weekend squad, or maybe not that type of game at home, but that's how I would go.
I like the comment of Chan. As long as we gain more points than Panama in this window, that's
a good point too. Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very good. Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, you've also got to think as well, who knows what's to come in the next window, because you could have sudden. I mean, it looks like Omicron's kind of dying down in bits, and it's kind of getting less and less. Who knows? It could be another variant come up or something that suddenly affects
Michael,
European.
come on, man.
No, but seriously,
it's true,
something could stop these European guys even traveling over at the next window. So you kind of want to get as many points in the bag as you can. Because if we were just relying on domestic talent, I think we could be in for a bit of a fight.
Yeah, and especially now too, the rules in Canada are athletes who are not vaccinated are no longer exempt from rules. They won't be allowed to come, including with the national team.
Mm-hmm.
So it could make for some really interesting lineups. Both, I mean, Canada really only has the game against the US and then the game against Jamaica are their only remaining home games, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, it definitely could complicate things. Maybe we'll see a surprise American not making the trip across the border, or perhaps come March, a couple of Jamaicans won't make it across the border. I don't know, of course, but yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting because, Alex, you talked about Jamaica a bit earlier, right? Saying that, they were out of the picture and now they're back. At the beginning of the Ocho, here on The Ball is Round, for me, Jamaica was one of the teams to beat. For me, it was the team that was supposed to. We were supposed to be in a battle with Jamaica for the third position. That's, for me, was the main threat, and I was very surprised to see them, not be that good at the beginning of the Ocho. Now, the thing is, right now, I see Patrick just said that Costa Rica is going to make a push. I don't really believe in Costa Rica because I don't think they're as good as they were before. Like, I think that this generation is not as good as it was. So I don't know. I don't see Costa Rica as a threat. So we'll see.
Yeah, guys. Anything to add to Canada?
I'll just add for chance.
Let's just save for next episode. Go on.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with the Honduras game before. But in terms of Panama, I'm curious to see how they get on this window, because for me in the November window, I think that result they got against Honduras was life-saving. Like the fact that they went to San Pedro Sula, went down 2-0 and won 3-2. Like that's the kind of result that changes a whole team. Like if they lost that game, they would have been in right back in the dogfight. So I mean, that shows that Panama maybe is a bit closer to, a result like that than we think, but also, do they have that more magic in their, in their back pocket to keep going as they're going? I think it's going to be interesting. And also that if you're Canada, you see a result like that, it also does, tempt you a little more for Honduras. That's the one thing I'll say. I guess if we're going to finish off this Canada talk, I'm just curious to see. It's too bad Davies isn't there, because this would be his first trip to San Pedro Sula. I just want to see how a player like Davies handles that environment. But if you're Canada, you have to look at the fact that the U.S. sent a bunch of kids to San Pedro Sula in September and won. And then Panama obviously made that comeback, which 10 years ago, that would have never happened. Even if Mexico went with their best team to San Pedro Sula and they went down 2-0, that would never happen. If you're Canada, I just want to see how they see that and how they play as a result, because even a weakened Canada squad with the form Honduras is in, I'd love to see them, at least give it a go. But we'll see how things are in a week. It's one of those games where you'll talk to people in a week, be like, oh, they lost 3-0. It's same old. But then we could also be saying, oh, this is a monumental win. This is going to send them to the World Cup. I think that San Pedro Sula game is going to be such a it's going to be one I feel like that's going to really tell us the most out of, about this Canadian team this window. I think the Azteca gave you a decent idea of what this team's made of. Some of the, going down to the Azteca, those games against Mexico taught you a lot, but it's really this game against Honduras where it's a trap game. You're going to a tough environment. Other teams have already gained points off of this team. So it's a, if you lose here, you fall behind. I think it's going to tell us a lot about this Canadian team.
Oh, wow. Yeah. The pressure from Alex on that game. I'm not confident.
No, but one thing for sure, John Herman has the knack to surprise us. If you look at what the squad he put out at the Azteca and the way they approached the game, we were previewing it. We were almost talking about parking the bus and a 5-4-1 or something, and he just went out, guns blazing, attacking. So, I mean, I'm sure he's gonna have a surprise or two up his sleeve for that game in San Pedro Sula. That's what makes it very interesting to follow the national team these days, guys. Let's move on. Steph Labe is retiring in April. Yeah, beautiful message she put out. I don't know, guys, if you saw it, but it was a really, really touching message for her retirement. So quickly, Steph Labe, it's 85 games for Canada, 2 Youth World Cups, 3 Senior World Cups, 3 Olympic Games, 2-time Olympic medalist, Olympic champion, and what a legacy she leaves behind. And, guys, what's the impact that Steph Labe had on Canada soccer in general, but also for the women's game, obviously, and for her position as a goalie?
Oh my God. Wow. I don't even know where to go, honestly. I mean, she's come so far. She played semi-pro in Canada. She played in NWSL. She played in Europe, in Sweden. She just did a stint with PSG, which was obviously ended by mutual agreement. So she's really, her career has been very long, and she's been all over the world. So for me, it's awesome as well that she's going out on top, like with a gold medal around her neck. I think it's wonderful, and I'm really excited for what she's going to be bringing, because I know she's a really strong proponent as well of bringing a pro league to Canada for women. And I really hope she finds some involvement in that. No pressure.
Yeah, same as Diana Matheson, right? That's really working on that to bring a pro league in Canada. So I like that. I like that the former players are really, trying to do that and to achieve that. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen at one point. Now, for me, Steph Labe, she's been amazing with Canada. For me, she was a bit on a downhill before the Olympic Games, and she had an amazing tournament during the Olympic Games. And you all know, guys, I've said it numerous times here on The Ball Is Round. For me, it was time for Stephanie Labe to leave her place for Kaylin Sheridan. For me, Sheridan was supposed to be the number one. We saw it in the She Believes Cup where Sheridan was supposed to be the number one, and then she got injured in the first game, and Labe came back and had decent performances and claimed her spot back. And that's what I like about Steph Labe. Every time you think that she's down, she went right back up and she fought a bit more, and she got her place again. She claimed her place again, and deservedly. And I think that right now Canada doesn't have a problem between the sticks, to use your to use your website name, Alex. But I think that Sheridan is going to be great. Also, she's an amazing goalkeeper. She's been awesome in the NWSL. But yeah, thank you very much, Steph Labe, and thank you for everything that you've done. It was amazing, and now it's time for the youth to come and take your place.
Yeah, it sucks to lose someone like Stephanie Labe. I think certainly on and off the pitch, she was a big part of the Canadian team. Yeah. On the pitch with leadership. This is it sucks to lose a valuable member of that generation as the team transitions over. I think she was very outspoken as well for a lot of good initiatives such as mental health. and obviously like bringing the she brought a lot of good attention to that, talking about her struggles with that. It's been huge just for kids across the country to have someone like that represent the national team. So I think that's going to be a big void, losing someone like her. But it's also, like Hattie says, Canada's in good hands going forward. I think Kaylin Sheridan's going to be, a good piece long term. There's still a lot of young names coming up through the pipeline. So I think Canada will be in good hands. You're going to miss a player like Stephanie Labe, but also credit for her for leaving on her own terms. She always said she was going to retire after these 2020 Olympics. They got delayed a year. She got a transfer to PSG. Things kind of, maybe didn't end up being the plan she thought, but it's happy that she was able to go out on top on her own terms. She retired, and I'm excited to see what she does, because I know, if she ends up going into commentating, if she ends up getting, maybe getting stuck into a women's league or getting stuck into an administrative position, I think she'll like she did when she was a player, she'll put her all into it, and will continue to lead the way. So while it sucks to not have her on the national team anymore, it'll still be good to have her hopefully involved in soccer, because the sport in Canada will be better off for it.
And she's going out on a high. It's you can't get a better way to go out. Maybe a World Cup winner, but even if she had stayed and was playing next year, she probably wouldn't have been starting down in Australia and New Zealand. So this is her way to go out on her terms, the way that she wants to, with some great memories. I really had wanted to go on the call that she had on Wednesday, I think it was. And I was all set to go on it. And then I was speaking to someone at the Whitecaps at 1, and it got brought forward half an hour to the same time. So I wasn't able to go on the call. So I wanted to ask her what exactly she maybe had in mind for the future, because I would not be surprised if she gets involved with Calgary Foothills more, because she was there and she wanted to play USL as a female player in the men's league. I don't know if you remember that. There was all the kind of controversy over whether they would let her play and stuff. And she was really kind of trying to push that, look, break down these boundaries. We can play and stuff like that. So I would imagine that she'll get back involved with the Foothills. And I would also imagine if there's a pro league in Canada, the Foothills are going to be one of the proponents of that league. So it would be interesting to see what she does there. I still think it's going to be hard to get a pro league up and running in Canada in the next couple of years. I think it's kind of baby steps with like League One BC. We're going to have 7 female teams coming in here in May, and then 1, maybe 2 NWSL teams. I think we could still be a long way off from having a pro league, but Foothills need a place to play. I think they're going into the USL or something. I'm getting all these mixed up, but there's it's not this new league that was meant to be this Canadian division that they were having. I think they're going into the UWSL, I saw. So Foothills are involved in that. So I would not be surprised if she's involved in that.
Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, I think she had a big impact on Canadian soccer, and really, like you said, Alex, her advocacy for mental health, and she was very open about her own struggles, talking about depression, her panic attacks that she would have at the Olympics. And I think she even said that 2 days after the final, she was like in a dark room, not moving for like 48 hours because of all the pressure that she went through during the Olympics and stuff. So it's very rare you see athletes become as clean as how they feel about their profession and what it does to them. So I think that's very important. And she was such a good footballer too, fantastic goalie. So the only thing we can say now is thank you for the memories, Stephanie, and I'm sure we're gonna see her again. But it was fantastic to see her on the pitch, and what a way to go out with that Olympic gold medal around her. And she had a very, very important part to play in that team, so that was really cool. So yeah, I think we're done for Labe. Anything else, guys?
Yeah.
Can I just ask you guys, were you as stunned as me that she didn't win goalkeeper of the year?
Oh my God!
Yeah. Let's talk about that. You're right.
I thought she was a shoo-in. I genuinely did. To have that performance in an Olympic gold medal game and
with a
you still
freaking
don't win
smile
it?
on your face.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. No, I was really surprised. Yeah,
Honestly,
really.
Canada in general was so robbed at the awards.
Oh yeah, for Bev not to make top 3
No.
But you've got an international coach that failed with 2 countries and didn't win anything. Is nominated in the top 3. It's baffling.
And Christine Sinclair not even being mentioned in a Ballon d'Or race. For me, it's unacceptable. She won the Olympics. She won the NWSL. Like, what do you want more? What do you want more?
Exactly. Like of the major awards for women to win in that year, she's I can't even.
I don't know.
It's like I know Sink got that award, the best,
the special award.
It feels like, oh, we should do something for her.
Yeah, makeup
this
award.
award.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
like in the Oscars. It's like in the Oscars when you get the career award, whatever it is. You know, it's just you've never been good enough to be the best, but you've been really good. So here's an award.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it's just like the Ballon d'Or. I mean, that one's okay, a little tougher. Canada's more of a a good team. It was always going to be hard. Whereas Sinclair, this wasn't one of her best years. So if it would have been one where she won it, you would be happy for her, but you'd also feel like it wasn't deserved. I think personally, Ashley Lawrence had the best shout out of any Canadian for the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
For me, the 2 that really irked me, obviously Bev Priestman. Well, all 3, I guess. It was the Bev Priestman at head coach. It was the best 11, which was just farcical. The fact that
but that was a popularity contest.
Yeah,
like the fact that Alex Morgan was making it in the team, like there could have been
Carly
3 Canadians.
Yeah, Carly Lloyd. Man,
I was like, she scored all her goals in testimonial matches this year.
And then Alexia Putellas won the Ballon d'Or and she didn't even make or she won the best award and she didn't make it. That's when you kind of knew it was all over. Then the Stephanie Labe not winning the goalkeeper. I mean, Christiane Endler, great goalkeeper, as we know. She had a great year with PSG with their upset of Lyon in the Champions League, winning the league for the first time. Breaking Lyon's 15-year run. It's a great story, but at the same time, Stephanie Labe in Canada, the underdogs, winning the gold medal for the first time, and Labe playing a big role in it. And she also, you have to remember, she wasn't there when they won the league title. She did also win a league title in Sweden with Rosengard. She's a pretty big team. Obviously, she left halfway through the season to go to PSG. So it wasn't as if she was doing nothing for her club either. Because you could say, oh, Endler had the club over country. Labe had the club and she had the country. It just makes no sense. And it really just shows the awards across really both men's and women's votes were quite farcical in both regards. I mean, it shows that the best 11s that are voted on by the players obviously need to watch more of the other teams, or they need to make it so that they don't vote on it because obviously they're not following it enough to decide. And then just the individual awards, there's just some of the decisions were head scratching to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. All right, guys. Let's move on to our little CF Montreal segment. We don't have a lot this week, but we have some news, and we talked about it before when it was rumored that we would join the PLSQ and not the MLS Next Pro League. Now it's official. We are gonna play in the 12-team PLSQ next year. I'm sorry. Has anything changed since the rumor came out, guys, on your opinion on it? And I'm very interested to hear the opinion of the Vancouver guys on reserve team playing in a semi-pro league locally.
It's interesting because they have the BC League One that's gonna be here. So what if the Whitecaps had a team in the BC League One? Would you be happy?
Well,
they do.
They do.
They do. True.
They've got their under 19 team in it.
Okay.
Oh, the under 19. Okay.
Man, listen. I mean, the PLSQ. We talked about it. I don't think it's that much of a big deal that we're gonna play PLSQ football next year because they're gonna play against. I'll say it again. Some ex-pros. They're gonna play against men. And it's not an easy schedule in the PLSQ. I know it's a semi-pro league. These guys are gonna be there full time, but still, they're gonna play against guys that are gonna go for them every game. It's gonna be a final for these teams every time they're gonna play against the CF Montreal reserve team. So it's not gonna be a walk in the park. So I think it's okay. And Olivier Renard kind of explained it by saying that he wasn't open to invest like millions of dollars in something that he wasn't sure of. So there's clearly some things that are not clear yet about that MLS Pro League, next Pro League. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. I know the opinion in Montreal is very negative around that move, but I don't think it's that bad, guys.
Yeah, I don't think it's that bad either. Yeah. And we talked about it. For me, yes, there are some negatives. And of course, the negatives are well known. Okay. Yes, they're not, following all the other MLS teams. That's for sure. That's one negative. The second negative is that, of course, they're playing against, semi-professional teams. So, the players are not as fit as them because they do train, fully. Right. So, yeah, there are some problems there, but if you're able to compete with the best teams of PLSQ, you have some good teams with the CSMRO, of course, and Blainville, who are some good teams. Longueuil, that's a good team also. So you do have some good teams. If you are able to compete against them, that's already something good, because the players in that U23 team are going to be 17, 18. They're going to be pretty young. They're going to play against very experienced players that have been, there are some players like Shaki Bosim that you guys have seen in the CanPL, or you've seen Zakaria Mesoudi, or there's a lot of players that are within that PLSQ that were former pros, and they're still there's 27, 28, or 29. We just saw today Gabriel Balbinotti that just signed with the Richelieu Celtics. So you do have some accomplished players that have played at the CanPL level that are going to play in the PLSQ. So for me, yes, there are some positives, there are some negatives. Right now, I think that Montreal wasn't ready to go to the MLS Next Pro. They're just taking a step, backwards, and just going to observe, see what the MLS Next Pro is, and then take a decision. I don't see what's the problem with that.
It's just really hard not to read it as being cheap.
Yeah, because that's the narrative right here.
Well, that's how it came across from afar to me, because I was like,
Thank
I guess they've done this for money.
Yeah.
Money has always been the narrative in Montreal, right? So
for sure,
I think that kind of comes into it. But yeah, and Olivier Renard talked about money too. So,
but I've spoken to Axel a couple of times here about this MLS2, and they haven't got all the information yet.
Well,
and they're talking about a league that's going to be starting in March or April, and either he isn't telling us because he's not allowed to, but Alex, you've heard this as well. I got the impression he genuinely didn't really know all the ins and outs of this league yet, and I've been asking him for a couple of months now. And what he did share is, it looks like the plan is, if the first team is playing some weekend, home or away, they'll try and get the MLS2 team to play that same weekend against the MLS2 team of that team. So that does cut down. So that
they can kind of go together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What we don't know is, will they be playing at the same venue? Will it be a standalone venue? Will they be expecting fans to come in? Which, when you read the MLS press release on it, they're talking about streaming and professional and stadiums and all this stuff. So that comes with some expense as well. And looking at our experience here with WFC2, in the final days of it, you're talking, it was under 1,000 folk were coming out, and they're streaming those games, and they're hiring stadiums, and they're putting on entertainment, and there's stewards and policing and everything like that. So it's a lot of money. So I do get that, but it's what you want from this team. It's like, do you want top development or medium development? So right now, the Whitecaps have had their under 23 team that have had nowhere to play. They've played friendlies, they've played local college games, they've unofficially played games that they're not allowed to talk about for various reasons that I won't go into.
Okay.
It's all NCAA rules and stuff. So they're going to be in this MLS2. The Whitecaps under 19s are going to be in League 1 BC. Right now, the under 19s are in the Fraser Valley Soccer League here, which is an amateur league. And there's two amateur leagues in the Lower Mainland, the Vancouver one and the Fraser Valley one. And the Fraser Valley one is a poor second to the Vancouver one. But the Vancouver one wouldn't let them go into the Premier right away. And they felt, well, we don't want to be in Division 1 there. We're going to not be tested. So they've got into the Fraser Valley, and it's not a great quality. And they're still only the third best team in that league. And it's like, that's concerning as a starter. So maybe the under-23 should have gone in that to be more competitive. I know the PLSQ's ahead of us considerably in League One BC. League One BC here is going to be quite a weak first year from what I'm kind of gathering from it. And it's only going to be a couple of years before we are strong. So maybe that is a good test for you guys. And cost effectiveness, you're maybe going to get the same benefit out of it. Maybe you can play the odd friendly against an MLS 2 team when they come up to play in Montreal.
And
Alex,
sorry,
Alex,
Alex, go
anything
ahead.
to add?
Well, I mean, I just to kind of hop on. It's kind of there's so much uncertainty with this MLS too, where it's like, I think a lot of us, even on myself personally, at times you're kind of looking at what it could be, or at least what we want it to be, what it should be. And we have to remember there's so much uncertainty. There's still rules coming out about how it's going to work. If you're the Whitecaps, I remember talking last year to, I guess at the end of 2021 to Axel about it. And they're like, he's like, we have to still decide if we want what our branding is going to be, what, where we're going to play, stuff like that. You don't do that overnight. You don't just wake up in the morning with brand new branding and a stadium. And like, there's all these important key details that need to be hashed out. And it's January 23rd and they're supposed to kick off in 2 months. So like Michael says, there's so much uncertainty, whereas I think it's not the end of the world if Montreal isn't there for a year. I think ideally, if you're MLS, you're probably a bit pissed off because you kind of want all your clubs to be involved when you're making a move like this. You want to be unified on that regard. The more teams, the more theoretically competitive it is, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're Montreal, obviously they've assessed what they saw and they didn't believe that it's right. And like you say, the PLSQ is such a highly regarded league across Canada. You look over, like Michael says, for League One, you look at some of the teams. There's going to be a lot of good players, but there's also going to be a lot of uncertainty of what's the level going to be. You still have to figure that out. So I think it's one of those, if it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation for Montreal. If you join, maybe you end up regretting it. If you don't join, maybe you don't end up regretting it. But at least now they've got a stable situation with the PLSQ, and then they can take that chance to in a year see where it's at. I mean, I myself personally, I hope this MLS second team is a success, just because at least from a Vancouver perspective, there's a whole generation of players like, just to throw out examples, you see Damiano Pasile make the bench yesterday for Venezia. It's a big deal. Had there been a second team, he could have been playing for the Whitecaps to start the season, because he was kind of stuck in this no man's land where he was too good to play with his peers, not good enough for the first team. Where do you go? That's where a second team comes in. So personally, I want to see this league succeed. I want to see, the Whitecaps have the next generation of kids not end up like your Pasiles, your Colines, your guys who are kind of spread all over the your Faccineris, even that kind of 03, 02 age group where they've kind of just been in no man's land. But at the same time, if you're Montreal, they've got a good thing going. They've been taking care of, their younger players. They've been loaning a lot more out to the CPL. Yes. They've had them close by. They've had that. They did have that second team before. So if you're Montreal, I'm not too worried, say.
And Sirwa's coming to Vancouver. So there we go.
Just a question for Marco Telehuro. Do you expect them to win the PLSQ, Eve? Pessimistic Eve.
I mean, I honestly got it. I don't know. I truly don't know. Because we generally assume that the PLSQ teams will come in with a point to prove, very much wanting to beat them.
Of course.
But logic dictates that if you're in the academy of a major league soccer club, that you should have the out and outright talent and the regimented coaching and, the full-time devotion to the sport. So I don't know if next year they'll win, but I certainly, if they're in the PLSQ next year, like the year, you know what I mean? In two seasons. Oh my God, sorry.
2023.
There we go. That's the year. That's the year. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Time is
okay.
hard. I would think that they would be pushing for it probably in 2023. I expect 2022 to be a lot of adjustment.
I think they have to be within the top three. I think the league with Blainville and CSMRO, I think they have to be up there in the top three. Will they win? I don't think so. I think that you have good teams in the PLSQ, but we'll see. I don't know, Sam, if you're someone that really played against a lot of those guys. So what do you think?
Well, they're competitive guys. So even if they're almost they're in their 30s, they're gonna go out there. But it's not even that. It's more like the thing is that the academy is, well, the reserve team isn't in the PLSQ, in my opinion, to win it. They're there to prepare to get to the level that they need to. So, for sure it's gonna probably be a blueprint of Wilfred Nancy's system. So they won't be like adjusting tactically always against the teams they're gonna play and stuff. They're really gonna they'll have their idea, I think, on how to get into it, and they'll stick to their ideas. So win, lose, draw, I think it's second nature for them going into that. It's more developing the players and testing them in certain situations. So I think this is the reason why they won't win, but they should have the talent to win it though. But I don't think it's the objective.
I'm very interested to know who's going to be the coach, because they don't have a coach right now. I'm very interested. Patrick Leduc said that we'll know something in the next few days. So, and he also confirmed that CF Montreal will be the name of the team. So no return to the Impact for the people that thought that they could name the reserve team the Impact. It's not going to be the Impact. It will be CF Montreal.
We're stuck with it, for better or for worse.
Quickly, guys, last news. The calendar for the preseason games is out. We're playing New York City on the 29th, Miami on the 4th of February, Philly on the 8th, and Miami FC on the 11th. I just have a question regarding this quickly, is knowing that we're going into Champions League football, does that change anything to preseason? Because we kind of treated preseason like scrimmages a lot and not really like going out with big teams, like these good, the top players play half an hour here and there. So is it going to change anything that we have that big Santos Laguna away game coming up?
Yeah, for sure. You can't really play a big team just before the game against Santos Laguna, right? Sure. I'm happy that on the 11th you're playing a USL team with Miami FC. I'm happy about that because it's the weaker team, even if it's a good team.
That doesn't mean anything to Montreal.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, but you're not going to play with your best players like right away. I think that game you're just going to play with some rotational players and not the best players, because you're going to have to rest them for the game on the 15th. That's my opinion, but we'll see. But yeah, you can't have a preseason like the Whitecaps have against Club Tijuana and Landon Donovan's team.
I was going to say reserve. Club Tijuana reserves.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't know that. So I thought it was the main team. Okay. So it's not that. It's not that. It's not that bad then. Okay. So we have a good preseason, I think. I like the way the preseason games are scheduled. I like that. I like, as I said, that Miami FC is the closer to the Santos Laguna game. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for you guys, it's interesting to see how you handle going right into the Santos game, because that can be kind of like a poison pill for MLS teams. Just like, it's really unfortunate how the MLS schedule is. You can't really say you want to start the league in January. You look, even in Vancouver, it's snowing in January these days. You don't want to imagine what it's playing, in Toronto, Montreal, Minnesota, all that early in the season. But it just sucks, because if you're Montreal, you've got this preseason. Your first game is against a big Mexican team. It's not easy to ease into. I think we see that a lot of years when teams. I think of Toronto last year, they had to play, Club Leon right off the bat. And while they won, but at what cost? They lost half of their roster from injuries, because you're going from playing scrimmages against your teammates to playing one of the better teams on the continent in a competitive environment, it strains a roster, the travel like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how Montreal handles that challenge, because, if you look back to 2020, the last kind of, the start of a normal year when Montreal kind of drew with Saprissa in the first round, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of helped them. Saprissa is a good team, but it was a more manageable, battle. Montreal came out, they won that Saprissa tie. I think they started the league really well, and then COVID hit. You'd want that more if you're Montreal, kind of that easier draw to ease your way in. It's kind of getting thrown right to the Lions. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they can handle preseason, Champions League. Will there be any injuries? Will they be able to, be competitive in that Santos Laguna tie? It's a lot of questions.
Well, you look at all the MLS teams last year. They struggled at the start of the MLS season because they had been playing in Champions League. But I think you guys have got quite a good preseason schedule. Ours is weird. It's like so many USL and weak teams that I'm not quite sure that that's the best preparation. But the best one we ever had was when we were down at the Disney Classic in 2012. That was fantastic. Mainly because I went down. It's my only trip to Florida I've ever had. But that was, and we won it. But that was a great tournament because that really tested them. But if you're going into a big game like that, do you want to be tested too much?
No.
Yeah, you're right, man. Yeah, so okay, that's gonna be cool to see. But I think we'll have to go pretty strong at the start of these preseason games, because there's a lot of there's some new players. They need to get acquainted to the system, to the roster, and there's some demons to chase with that Santos Laguna.
Yeah, John Herdman would probably have a word or two to say about a revenge game.
Oh yeah, for sure. And Patrick just dropped that negotiations with Rudy Camacho have reopened as per Milton George. Okay. Listen, I don't know, man.
Man, if they reopened again, I don't know, man. I hope that it's going to be like $500K for the year, not more.
No, excuse me. They offered him an amount of money. He said no, thank you, and wandered away. And if negotiations have reopened, I assume nobody else has come knocking. So, in my opinion, he's at Montreal's mercy now.
Exactly. So $500K.
Can do less.
We're good with that.
I think $500K
seems a lot.
That's a lot.
Well, he was making
he was making 800 and something.
That's Gamigad's money, yeah, man.
And he was our best central defender last year. Yeah. So
yes, but I find funny because Paul came on our show before the season started, and he tore him. He tore into him.
No time for me.
From day
Paul
one,
hates Camacho, man.
Yeah, no, he really does not have time of day for Rudy Camacho.
I can understand Paul, because Camacho has been here for 3 years.
The first 3 seasons were friggin' shambolic.
Exactly, and the last one was really, really, really good. Like he was awesome. So I don't know which Rudy Camacho will we see in case he does sign back with the CF Montreal. But it's kind of interesting if we have a back line of Alistair Johnston, Rudy Camacho, and Kamal Miller.
But no, then what?
I like that.
What the hell happens to your playing the youth, Hattie? Because we've got Crepeau Yao, who had a fantastic season in
Corbo.
And no, I don't care about Gabriela Corbo because that's Bologna's offering to us this year.
I love her. She's so pessimistic and yeah.
No, I mean whatever. That's
nobody
who they foisted upon Montreal this year. They foisted Last Up line in on us, and for some reason he's here forever. But I mean they also foisted Sebastian Breza on us, and that worked out really well. So so to be fair, every now and then it does work out. But I think Crepeau Yao is due for a time. And to me, if Camacho comes back, then that takes valuable time away from players who had a really, really good season in CanPL last year.
There's 2 things, okay? First of all, Crepeau Yao is going to come in and slot in as a 4th or 5th defender. I don't think he's going to be a starter, right? 4th, 5th, even 6th
He looks
defender.
so fit, though.
I know. But and second of all, I don't know if you guys saw, but Waterman
Yeah,
wasn't at training.
Yeah, and not injured, not COVID, as far as we know.
We heard that it wasn't COVID.
See, I wanted
don't know
us to
what's
make a
going on
play
there.
for Waterman in the off season. I thought he would have been a good defensive addition for us. Not now, but I'd have loved to have had Joe here because I watched him play with Trinity Western and commentated on him a few times over the years, and I'm a big fan of him. Watching him
been
come
awesome.
to USL.
He was
really
awesome
grew last year.
He was really good.
He grew. No. Come on. He grew into being really good.
Yeah. At the end, he was very good.
Yeah, shaky start.
Yeah.
Shaky start. Yeah. But he did get much better better afterwards.
Yeah, no, he really did.
He took Kiki Strunen's place, basically. He was making more than $1 million.
Dollars, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at Montreal. Or sorry, yeah, just the last play. I'm looking at Montreal from my perspective. I just want, like Yves says, I want to see Crepeau, Joel Waterman. I'm kind of, from my outside perspective right now. Montreal's going all in on the the Ken MNT backline. I want to see them Brock, Kamal Miller, Joel Waterman, Johnston, Crepeau, Yao. For me, the only reason is, if Montreal does keep Rudy Camacho, my only dream from my outside perspective is that he plays like he did last year, and then he actually does get his Canadian citizenship, because he is close. If someone was saying,
he's been here for a while.
If that happens, then okay, as an outsider, I wouldn't mind seeing Rudy Camacho if that means he can. I'm not saying he goes and starts next week for Canada if he's eligible. I'm just saying it's nice to have names in the pool if he's playing well. So from an outsider perspective, that's the only world I'd want to see Camacho. If not, I'm intrigued by, like Yves says, Crepeau. He looked so good every time I saw him play for Cavalry last year. I saw him a few times in person with Pacific. He was always one of the better players on the field. So it'd be cool to see him take a step forward this year.
Yeah, most
Thank
definitely.
you. Thank you.
I'm with you, Alex. But we'll keep an eye on that
rumor,
that news, because it's. I'm a bit surprised, to be honest. I thought it was done and dusted, but
I'm rolling my eyes.
We'll see.
Maybe Waterman heads to CPL with Pacific. Lost McNaughton today. Could be an interesting replacement.
Yeah,
maybe.
And they got Luke Singh back on loan apparently.
Yeah.
Pacific, so I filled that hole.
Yeah,
sort of.
Oh man, I don't think Waterman goes back to CPL.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
I think
he's now MLS caliber.
Oh yes, he is.
Yeah. Even if he's, even a rotational caliber, depending on who all it makes up the back line. But I think depending on how a defense sets up, particularly if they set up with a back three, I think he definitely has a place in the middle of the back three. That's my preferred position for him, as I've said 57 times.
If he left Montreal, where would he go? Because he'd be an international on any other team.
He'd have to go to a Canadian team, in my opinion.
To Vancouver.
I'd still take him. I just don't. We're then got way too many centre backs.
I know, that's like the one position where,
Toronto, anyone?
No,
thank you.
Oh, really, man.
No, they've got their DP Mexican center back coming in. But no, I actually agree. Like, technically, Toronto could use a center back or 8. So yeah. But my heart would not be able to take it. So no.
So guys, I think we're good for part 1.
Yes.
Pretty much done. Eve, I'll throw it up to you for social media.
Alrighty. So unsurprisingly, with the looming match, it focuses mainly on Canadian men's national team. I think we might have hit on some of these points already, but nonetheless, our first tweet of the day comes from Vincent. Says Osorio, Kay, Atiba, and Piet will play a lot. Hoping Liam Fraser is somewhat in shape too. And then too bad Prizo, Akello, shout out to Hattie, and Zuhir are not ready yet for a call-up. And in my mindset, might have to rely on Tybert. So obviously as well, Liam Fraser signed for a Belgian club in the 2nd division this past week. So do we think perhaps he might have a place in the squad now with Eustachio in particular being out?
I never understood the hype against with Fraser. Never. I think he was pretty good when he was a lot younger and was supposed to get minutes with Toronto, but Toronto never gave him minutes. But I think that the fact that he didn't play when he was younger, now he's kind of not as good, doesn't have that much potential, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I don't think that he's going to be a good player either, like a very good player either. So, no, for me, no Liam Fraser. I prefer to give some a chance to Okello and to Patton or to whatever Mitrovic if you go with an attacking solution or attacking midfielder in the squad. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh boy,
I'm not a big fan of Fraser either, to be honest.
No, I'm not.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm pretty. I like him sort of, as in, I think he's shown a fair bit, and from what I've seen with him, I thought last year at Columbus he made the best of. He headed to a team on loan that kind of after the championship season they had a bit of a hangover. I thought he was one of the brighter lights on that team. For me, I'd say right now there's not much of a role for him, but beyond just kind of like he did last year for Canada, which is fill in if needed, 5-10 minutes here. I just want to see how he gets on in Belgium, really. I hope for his sake his team gets promoted so we can see what he really looks like in the first division, and we can see if he's able to make a first step up, because from what I've seen, he just adjusts well to the level he plays at. And that those kind of players are hard to gauge because they'll play kind of against a weaker team and you might not notice them, but then they'll play. I think of just that Canada-US game. It's 3 years ago now, so it's kind of in the past. But he looked, he adjusted well to the level. He didn't look out of place. I think last year when he came off the bench against Mexico at the Azteca, he had a fantastic 15 minutes, if someone remembers. Yes. He can play up the level. So I just want to see him, in Belgium go up a level and test himself, because I think he has the potential. But it's like Hattie says, he hasn't shown enough yet, and that's mostly just because of opportunity, bad luck. But I'm also, I've had a different perspective because I, for some reason, seem to only see his good games. I don't know if Michael remembers correctly. There was one in 2019 when Toronto came to Vancouver. It was for the 40th anniversary Whitecaps game. Liam Fraser started because there were some injuries in the midfield, and he was man of the match. And for some reason, I always seem to see those games from Fraser. So maybe my perspective is a bit tinted, or however you describe it, because of that.
I want to throw a name out at you.
Okay.
Like, I still think they might look just for depth domestically. What about bringing Kyle Becker?
Oh, no, man. Oh, no. I don't think he's... You know what? Every time I watch CPL games, I think he's overrated even in the CPL.
And I mean, he's out of season as well. He's not in season 4.
Yeah, but they're training for Champions League as well.
Yeah, they are.
So they are in at training.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know if they are in at training yet, because I haven't had anything out from the club to say
I haven't seen anything. We had Kitsilidopoulos on the show not too long ago.
I know that they were starting early, like relatively
they are starting early.
For them.
Yeah, I think either they started this week or they're starting next week, if I remember correctly what Kit told us. Or I don't remember. I know that he said end of January, maybe beginning of February. You'll watch the game, the episode with Kitsilidopoulos, and you'll have an answer. No, but you know what? For me, Kyle Becker he's not a bad player. He's a very good player in the CPL. But getting Player of the Year for me, it's too much. And I don't think he's at the level of the Canadian national team. Not the Canadian national team that we have right now in 2022. Maybe a couple of years ago, yes, he would have his place in the squad, but not right now.
We probably wouldn't need to play him, though. It would just be like as a backup. And they do like to do, they like this token. Oh, look, we're recognizing the CPL with our squad. Look how good the CPL is.
I understand where you're coming from in that regard, but let's just mention condescending at the end of the day. I'd still go for Russell Tybert, honestly, because he's got the veteran experience in CONCACAF with Canada. I mean, I have the utmost respect for anybody who suited up with the Canadian national team through those dark years. So I'm still Team Tybert. You can't talk me off of it.
But you know
despite your faces.
But you know what, Eve, I'm gonna go with you a bit, because what's nice about Tybert is that he can play in multiple positions, and it's always nice to have someone in the squad with the national team, knowing that you're going to play 3 games in case you have an injury. Tybert could, fit in and slot in a different position. So maybe that could be good to have, as a sixth midfielder, to have someone like Russell Tybert. I wouldn't say no.
And there is a phrase, jack of all trades, master of none.
True. You're right.
Poor guy.
You're right.
Yeah, fair enough. Poor guy.
We're not wanting to pile on. You should get Russell on the show.
Oh my God! Yes.
Oh yeah. I think I'm gonna be sick when he's gonna be here.
No. Okay. I will take over the Hattie rule, and I will come in with the intense optimism.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I want to see that. I'll be the first one to tune in.
I want to see that as well, because there's a prickly interview at times.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Okay, nice. Go figure. I would have thought he was like warm and fuzzy. My bad. Now I'm disappointed.
If he's talking about BBC World, yes, he.
Oh
is,
yeah,
but,
he's huge about that. Get him on talking wildlife stuff.
Or his truck, maybe.
Okay.
Interesting, man.
Like the Blue Planet, stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. I'll get like a goldfish tank going in the background. Right on. We'll move on though to our next tweet of the week. And it's from S. Alfonso Davies Armano, which is one of my favorite viral tweets following the Panama match, of course. It says, Honduras game is probably is probably more important than most people care to admit. While Canadian men's national team was more dominant in the first round, Honduras held them. Good news is they've lost 4 straight and are all but mathematically disqualified. They only have pride to play for. So, earlier, obviously, a lot of the feeling was that perhaps Honduras is maybe the game that Canada could allow to, quote unquote, get away if they wanted to. But then, of course, also talked about the, not wanting to necessarily open back up a door that could be slammed shut on Honduras, given a result. So what do you think? Do you think it's as important as Alfonso Davies Hermano is leading us to believe?
Yeah, for sure, man. And there's one thing is when you're gonna play against these teams that have virtually only pride to play for, they're dangerous teams to go out because they're don't have to defend that much. They don't have to stick to tactics that much. They can just go out there and play a bit crazy, and sometimes it works. So, that's why I'm a bit wary of that Honduras game, and I think we really have to take it seriously because it's never going to be an easy task. So I'm pretty much with Alfonso Davies Armano. That's it. Yeah, I'm with him.
I just like 100%. The name. Let's face it. Yeah.
I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier. In the show, but what I guess kind of to add from what we said earlier. I think we have to remember we all kind of attack this from a Canadian perspective. So we're all kind of, in a sense, scarred. Because if you look at it from just an outside perspective, this is a must-win for Canada. Because if you want to make a World Cup, we talk about it. Win your home games, pick up where you can away. Well, this is on paper your quote-unquote easiest away game. This is a team that's dropping points to everyone else at home. This is a team that's lost in the table. They've been struggling. They fired their coach not long ago. This is a game as an outsider you'd want Canada to go and win. And if they win, they would make a huge, impact towards their World Cup hopes. It would be a big one. So I think if we're going to say from an outsider perspective, I could see why it's a massive game. I just think we're also scarred by the 8-1 that we're touching it gently like, okay, we're not, we don't want to say Canada should go down there and win 3-0, but I could see why as an outsider, who isn't scarred like that. I think this is a game that Canada would want to win because it would be massive for the World Cup hopes.
Yeah, big time. So I'll keep us rolling along here. So this is CF Montreal related, and I will go ahead and translate it.
Thank you.
So it's in relation to a rumor that came out this week that CF Montreal is one of several MLS clubs interested in the American right back Shaq Moore, who currently plays with Tenerife in the Spanish second division. So anyway, Alberto Mora A said that CF Montreal needs a left back unless ZBG is leaving the club. So what all do we think about this Shaq Moore rumor? A, that he's a right back. B, that it might be a loan move, possibly. Kind of what What do any of you know much about Shaq Moore?
I've never heard of him. I didn't know if it was just me or I was just going to play quiet here and go.
Oh yeah, he has been capped with the U.S.
Yeah, I've seen him play maybe once with the US, but I don't know much about him. But looking at his profile, we don't need the right back.
No,
we
exactly.
just don't need a right wing back or a right back. Like even if ZBG goes, you have Alistair Johnston and you have Mathieu Choinière that can play as a right wing back. That's better as a right wing back than as a left wing back. So if you need something, I completely agree with Alberto Mora. That says that we need a left wing back. We don't need a right wing back. So no, please.
No.
I've
been saying since like late in the season.
Yeah.
Montreal needs a left back or a left wing back, depending on what they prefer to play with.
And I still really believe in ZBG, even though he started so well last year and kind of faded. I think he's much better than what he showed at the end of the season. So I think Montreal should invest in him and just live or die with him, because I think he's good enough to do so. Now we do need a left back, and it's funny because I listened to, I think it was Dave Lévesque who asked the question to Mathieu Choinière this week in one of the pressers. He asked Mathieu Choinière if he considers himself a left back or a central midfielder who is playing at left back, and he answered, I consider myself a central midfielder playing at left back. And I was a bit surprised, by the answer, knowing the personality of Mathieu Choinière and stuff. But that kind of shows the need where it is. Mm-hmm. It's definitely at left back. Mustafa Kiza never panned out. I don't think Zoran Bassong is a sustainable starter. So we shouldn't be going after right backs. It's at left back that we definitely need to be there. So
yeah.
I guess a few points to hop in on. First of all, I'm surprised no one is recognizing Shaq Moore's name, because the reason I remember him right away is because you guys watched the Canada-US game at last summer's Gold Cup, did you? Yeah. He scored in the first minute of that game.
Yeah.
And that's why I can't forget that name. Because of that. He's the one he was a right back. He somehow ended up in the box for that low cross that went in and put it away.
That was a hot mess, yeah.
I just remember that because I remember writing a headline about Shaq Moore, and I don't think I'll ever do that again. So his name was stuck in my head because of that. Even he had a good game that game. The US, they won that game. Canada played well. So that's just why I think of Shaq Moore. As for Montreal, I like Zachary Broguier a lot. I think, hopefully he can find his form again last year. If I'm not mistaken, he had a death close to him. I think it was a friend halfway through the season. Yeah. So you have to imagine that obviously got into his head. Yes. He's a young guy. That kind of stuff can really impact someone. So hopefully he can step up. And all I'd say is, if I'm Montreal, you say left back, would it not make perfect sense for them to go after Diadine Abzi?
Yeah, of course.
We want him. We want him. And we wanted Mohamed Farsi, but it didn't happen. So
I was okay if we didn't go with Mohamed Farsi, because he's on the right-hand side of the field.
Yes.
I'm like, all I do is say to the left. I'm like, I'm going to have to, you know what? I live right by Olympic Stadium where they train. I'm going to get a boom box and I'm going to play Beyonce. Like to the left. And because Olivier Renard's at training pretty much every day, so that's my new game plan, is to try to convince them some other way. No.
So the giant cut out of Diadine Abzi's head
just over the top.
Don't put him. Actually, I'm getting my third dose at the Big O tomorrow. So I will probably be there at the same time. No, team has a holiday tomorrow. Ah, darn it. Okay, I'll have to. Maybe I'll rebook my third dose.
Man, I'm so pissed that I wasn't able to go to the training camp yet. For the people who are listening, the reason why I'm not there and you haven't seen any pictures from training camp, my son has COVID, so I'm stuck at home and I can't do anything. It's going to be for 10 days. I'm going to be stuck at home, so I'm going to miss the whole team. They're leaving on Wednesday and I'll still be confined at home. So no pictures, nothing from the training camp for me this year. And I really don't like that.
Yeah, I haven't been out to the Whitecaps one yet because I wanted to wait till I got my third booster, which I just got last week. So I was all set to go tomorrow, and then I found out they're not training tomorrow.
Anyway, I'm planning to reschedule mine just so I can get my it'll give me some time to make my absy cut out as well.
There you go.
Yes. Alrighty. So yeah, anyway, seems like we're kind of all in agreement that Shaq Moore might not necessarily be the best fit for Montreal.
No.
So awesome. Glad to hear it. With that being said, we have Rob Quigley, born 319 parts per minute. Interesting. This is related to the call-ups for the Canadian men's national team as well. So he says, I'd have preferred having Hoylett's bulk and experience, but the Canadian men's national team with David and the two other threats in front being, excuse me, I believe, if I recall correctly, it was Larin and Buchanan. And a solid back end will beat the U.S. by 2 goals. And so this was tweeted on January 21st for reference. So I believe prior to Eustachio's COVID diagnosis coming out. But Rob, despite obviously the absence of Davies, which was well known at the time, was still awfully confident. So
he was answering to a tweet that said, the U.S. Canada will never be able to beat the U.S. without Alphonso Davies. So, and you know what? I can't make a bold statement like him saying that they're going to win by 2 goals. But I don't think that the fact that we don't have Davies, that means that we don't have a chance. I don't really agree with that. I think that Canada still has a chance even without Alphonso Davies. So let's wait and see.
But we're not a one-man team by far.
No.
Exactly.
No. And I mean, we talked about, the litany of players who may or may not be part of the window.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting tomorrow. So, but 2 goals? You guys still confident? 2 goals?
No, I didn't say
stretch.
On the sketchy Hamilton snowy turf?
It's a stretch.
If anything, all I'd say is, 2 goals definitely not. That's way too bold. I just say the U.S. doesn't always look that good away, partially because they never play away. They play away like 3 times a year because they host all the tournaments conveniently.
Yes.
That's the one advantage I think you do have if you're Canada. If they can lean into the home advantage and they, be all absurd about it, maybe 1 goal without Davies. But 2 goals, that's a very bold statement. I mean, that's... Especially the U.S. now, they've got most of their big guns back. I wouldn't be bold enough to proclaim that, but maybe 1 goal. I'll say 1 goal.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you, Alex.
Okay, 1 goal. Interesting.
1 goal for Canada, Eve, not for the U.S., okay?
I know. I'm still calling you bold nonetheless.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And our final tweet of the evening, also related to, of course, the upcoming match. This was just following the announcement of Eustachio's probable absence due to COVID. He says, Piet Osorio, name at Rotor Todd Footy, said, the Piet Osorio Cavallini Super Friends are going to carry this window. Save this tweet. So which statement is bolder? Rob's previous statement or this particular statement?
Rob's.
This one.
I'd say that one too.
Yeah.
I don't even know if all 3 are gonna start, together or something. Nah.
It's really Cavallini and Piet because Osorio's already kind of had a good, run. He scored in Mexico.
He's usually getting a start. Yeah.
Cavallini.
Do we think he could score? Like the last time he scored, we have to remember was what? It was when they played
March.
Cayman Islands.
Everyone got a goal that game.
No, he scored since then, has he not?
He had 2 more. I think it wasn't. It was the Aruba game. I think it was.
I thought he'd scored in these World Cup qualifiers.
I don't think he scored in the octagon, no.
Because he's played like 5 minutes because he missed the first 2 windows with injury.
Yeah.
And then he only played 5 minutes in the Mexico game.
Yeah, and he was defending. It was probably
almost there. He was with them for the Gold Cup. Did he score the Gold Cup? I don't think he scored at the Gold Cup.
No, because I remember at one point I've been tracking a stat. His last goal was July 4th against Dallas, and he left from that to go to the Gold Cup. So it was before. I think it was the Aruba game, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. That's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm looking at transfer market to see, and yes, he scored the last 2 goals that he scored were on the 6th of June, and he scored the 2 goals against Aruba. You're completely right, Alex.
Okay.
Nice.
Mhm.
Nice. So
Good memory.
nah,
Okay,
I'm
so
not
slightly
really-
ambitious.
Yeah, no,
Go ahead.
no, not
Yeah.
for me, man.
Cava scoring is slightly ambitious, I think, just in general,
Oh boy.
right now.
Oh wow.
Oh
What
boy.
happened? What
Oh
happened?
dear. Alrighty. So anyway, those were some bold statements, some hot takes to round out social media for the week. And with that, I'm gonna hand it off to you, Sam.
Yes, it's my turn for Hattie's favorite game, and Tristan too. Tristan, I'm not forgetting choices. So I'll let the bell ring, and we'll start right away. There you go. Guys, I've got 2 choices. It's been a long show. We'll not go on forever with choices, but I've got 2 tough ones for you guys. And the first one is from a Vancouver perspective. So Eve and Hattie, and myself, obviously, you have to put yourself as a Vancouver fan. You can choose only one of these 2 situations to win a game. Please explain which one you choose and why. A Western Conference final versus a Cascadia rival at home, or a Canadian Championship final versus Toronto away.
Oh, easy.
Don't forget, you're a Vancouver fan.
Oh, that's a
Hmm.
tough one.
It is.
Right.
I would. See, the reason that I was pretty sure as I started that sentence what my answer was, and then I changed my mind after I got 2 words out. Because with the Canadian Championship, you've got silverware, and you're in the Champions League.
Yes.
Exactly.
But Western Conference final gets you into an MLS Cup
At home.
At home.
at home. I'd have to go with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I'm going with the playing at home for me, such a big game is fantastic for the fan base. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
It
taking
could
home
make
game.
the club in the
time of the
city.
day.
It would change everyone in the city's view of the club that
Yeah.
they were contenders. Like Canadian Championship, as much as we all love it, the general fan base really don't care.
Really niche.
Yeah.
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 True.
So I'd
Honestly-
have to go with one.
Okay.
It's the Toronto that throws it off for me, just because like if it was like away against Montreal, because I mean, yes, if you the older, the Whitecaps fans that have been around longer, for them
Yes.
it means more to beat Montreal. We have to remember, for most of the MLS era, it's been Toronto, and it's Toronto. It hasn't really been a rivalry, just because they've kind of beat up on Vancouver. And I know a lot of people in Toronto, whenever they talk about Vancouver, for them, they may as well be talking about a USL League 2 club. I think just the fact that it's a final in Toronto, the Whitecaps winning that would be a good way to get back at them for all the Will Johnson late winner at BC Place in
yeah.
2016 and some of those other memories.
Why
So
did you have to bring that up?
so that's because of that, I would go for the final in Toronto, just because it might not resonate as much with the casual fan, because I think, yes, if you beat, say, Portland or Seattle in BC Place, there would be, you could get 30,000-40,000 fans at least, of 5,000 at least away fans. It would be a phenomenal atmosphere, don't get me wrong, but also just beating Toronto on their own turf would also be so satisfying. So to be the contrarian, I'll go for the Toronto
That's
one,
what
just
I'm
because of
going for.
history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eddie.
Oh, I said I'm with Michael.
Oh, my bad. I missed it.
I'm
I
with
missed it.
Michael for sure. I'm going, beating and playing at home in the Western Conference final. It's everything. It's really everything. And I'm one of the guys that really was completely against the new format, the new MLS playoffs format, with the one tie game.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe it's a lot more exciting for the neutrals, but for fans that go to the game every 34 games, like 17 games in the year, having their team qualify in seventh position and not seeing not even one playoff game at home, for me, it's I don't like that. I don't like that. So home game a home playoff game, a home Western Final playoff game, man, any time of the week, like any day.
In that scenario, do we host the MLS Cup as well?
It's not said. I don't know. I don't know. That's the beauty of choices. You
Yes.
never know. It stops where it is. So guys, it's 2-2 now. Should I
Yes.
be the one who decides?
Do it.
He's stuck with his own choice.
Yeah. No, but I go with the Canadian Championship, and you know what?
That's right, Sam. You know.
Yeah. You obviously beat Toronto. Wait, you beat them.
See, that's clouding your judgment.
And it's a good away day if you don't get beat up.
Wait, but I Champions League football is fantastic, and we've lived in Montreal a run in the Champions League. It's absolutely nuts. So I'd prefer to see Vancouver too in that situation than.
Yeah, and I think you could definitely get casuals on board for a Champions League run.
Yeah, well, Montreal's popularity skyrocketed from that Porter's goal and everything else that ensued. So, yeah, Canadian
we
Championship.
Had Tigres here, and I genuinely can't remember if that sold out or not.
No, it was.
It didn't. Yeah,
that night was. I remember because it was raining quite hard, and they opened the roof for once just to try to freeze the Mexicans. Was their quote about it? But that's the problem with Vancouver. It's not that people wouldn't be interested in the Champions League. It's just here. It's Saturday nights or Saturdays and Sundays outsell the weekdays by a significant margin. Like if you look at unless it's playoffs, I think all the games that have been on the weekends outsell the weekday games. Like it's stark. There was some years where you'd go on a weekend game. It would be 30,000, say, for Seattle. And then in the midweek, it would be, a good game, say against, wouldn't be a rival. Let's say like a Salt Lake. It would be like 8, 12, 15,000. Like it would be like a stark difference. So that's the problem with the Champions League, that it's on that midweek. So it would take a big effort to convince people to come out.
Yeah, but that's like a regular season match you're talking about, right? Whereas, especially with the current format for Champions League, it's two-legged, but still it's direct elimination. So there's more of it on the line, even if it's midweek.
Yeah.
Well, the Whitecaps had it. I think it was it a quarterfinal at the time, or was it a semifinal?
I want to say it was the semi, but I think it was a semi.
Because I think it was the old format where you had the group stage and you went to a quarterfinal instead of a round to 16. So I think we can double check just because I think the year would have been 2016.
I think it was the last year of it. Yeah. It was the semifinal, and it was in 2017.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it was because I remember Alphonso Davies scored a famous Champions League goal in that run. So it shows Vancouver hosted a Champions League semifinal and barely got 15K. So it shows how much work would have to be
against Tigres as well. So like a big team, a name.
Gignac was coming here. That's a name that most people know. Vargas, if you've been I remember that game. I was for me, I was so
hyped. Shea, that big draw. Why would you not go and watch him?
You talk about Gignac and then you talk about Brek Shea right after.
He scored. He put us back in the tie.
Brek Shea scored in the second minute, I think it was too. It was
back
an early
to
goal.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, guys. So that's pretty interesting. Cool. The last choice, and going back to our old narrative. So you are Olivier Renard, and this is for Yves' mother. You are sitting in your office with some nice tea, and a plug inside the leagues calls you and hits you with this present information. Crepeau is going to LAFC for $1 million in GAM, but Vancouver love Georgi Mihailovic. And your plug tells you that Vancouver could accept to trade Crepeau, a first-round pick, and $200K in GAM for Georgi Mihailovic and Bjorn Janssen. Do you do it, and why? So they pick up Janssen's contract.
Are you saying so Crepeau's not gone in LAFC?
No, the only reason he's not gone yet because they're waiting for Olivier Renard's answer.
Okay, and can you repeat? So
the trade is Crepeau, a first rounder, and $200K in GAM for Mihailovic and Johnson.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nah, I wouldn't do it. Not at all.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
we're going to have Crepeau, but we also have Pantemis and Breza. And Mihailovic, we've been wanting a number 10 for maybe 10 years. And we finally have one. If we're sending him away, I need a lot of money or a lot of good players. So, no, I don't agree.
Okay, but you get rid of Janssen's contract.
I don't care, man.
Okay.
Yo, that's
we're able to buy out. We're able to buy out his contract, right? Don't forget, guys, that we were allowed to one buyout every year.
Yeah,
So.
well, still hasn't happened.
Yeah, won't happen.
But it might
Still
happen.
time.
You never know. There's still time. Exactly. Michael said it.
TikTok, yo.
Yeah, get on it with Olivier Renard. But I mean, yeah. Honestly, the perspective of the trade, I think, is clouded by the fact that Crepeau wants out. Because if you're the Whitecaps, that's an awesome deal. Like, you have a goalie who's already on his way out. You just add a draft pick, which, whatever, theoretically, and you want to be relying on your academy anyways. 200K at GAM, you supposedly got a boatload of it. You're getting away with 3 assets you don't really need. You get a guy like Georgi Mihailovic. I guess supposedly the Whitecaps don't need, but in this hypothetical, no, I'd take that player. You take a good player and you figure out the pieces around him. If you're Montreal, it's just the fact that Crepeau wants out. You probably have a little more leverage than having to give away a player of Mihailovic's stature, especially, like even had he mentioned, if you can buy him out, if you can buy out Johnson in the first place, do you really, he's kind of seems to be the reason the trade is happening. He seems to kind of be the anchor you're kind of trying to get rid of. So I think maybe if the player isn't Crepeau, it's someone else, then it gets a lot more interesting. I don't know. You talk about the Whitecaps' needs. Say you're throwing out a name, Montreal needs a left back. Say it's someone like Christian Gutierrez.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Gutierrez for Johnson, I'll do it.
Well, we'll say it's Gutierrez 500,000 for Mihailovic, or and Johnson. Then we could start to get into an interesting discussion. But I think for Vancouver, it's too much of a no-brainer. And if you're Montreal, you say no.
Okay, Michael.
Okay, Gutierrez, 1 million in GAM for Johnson and Mihailovic. I'll do it.
Or Sirois.
Yeah, I think if you're Vancouver, you take that deal, even though you don't really need Jordy, but you'd find a way to fit him in somehow. You'd make that work. Montreal, I think they could look at it as, the fan base don't like us because of the whole name thing. They were mad because we let Crepeau go. Now we're bringing him back. This would maybe be a little way to make amends. Prodigal son returns home. We do get a dead weight off our roster that we want to do. I think they would maybe do it. There's other 10s out there. I know it would maybe put you in a mess initially, but I think long term it would be beneficial to Montreal.
Interesting. Eve.
Oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna say it. No.
No.
I will send Bjorn Johnson free of charge. Like, go ahead.
I would genuinely take him. I like him.
Fantastic.
Take him.
It's done.
On a free. I'm not joking. On a free. Have him.
He was really nice on his introductory press conference because I jumped in that and I thought, what a nice man.
Yeah, he's very nice.
I think he must be. And so I really do feel bad for kind of the amount of stick I give him on our pod. Like, I have nothing against the human, just to be clear, but for the player, we had Eric Chenois with us, and he did a Herculean effort to make a case for Bjorn Johnson, which was all about, his body hold up place, or using his body. And I was like, bruh, it's $1 million+ a year for 2 goals. No. So anyway, no, I actually think no. I actually really think no. I think Georgi Mihailovic is really, really important, because whoever is up top gets that service from him. And I think it would really put a stick in between Montreal's wheels to be hamstrung so close to the start of the season and the start of Champions League without a playmaker. So solely based on that, no.
All right.
And
All right.
what's
I
So
your
go
wouldn't
ahead
do
and
it.
take
opinion,
you one.
Sam?
Yeah. Eddie?
Sam, what's your opinion?
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Keep Georgie, and yeah, if you have to buy out Johnson, you do it. But I still want to give him a couple of games, and try him
But then no, because then he's on the salary. I don't even know how to say it in English. The salary cap.
Yeah.
He's on the salary cap for the year, whereas if you do it in the off season, he's not, and that frees up that budget space. So
Yeah,
I
but
know
it
I don't want to
doesn't
give him a
feel-
couple games.
Yeah, but I'm assuming he's staying anyways. I don't think
Okay,
they're
fair
gonna
enough.
buy him out. So
He only has a contract for a year, right?
Yeah,
His
so
contract runs out at the end of the year. So I think, and you know what? Again, we said it a few times here on The Ball is Round. We joke a lot on Bjorn Johnson, but you never know. He could be very good for us this year. So sometimes it takes a while for some players. And one player that I could name is Gignac. Again, Alex talked about him earlier. Gignac, when he came to Marseille, his first year, his first 2 years were really bad. And then he started picking up and he started scoring goals, dozens of goals. And he started being, the best striker for Marseille. So some players take time to adjust to their new environment. So we'll see if Bjorn Johnson is this kind of player. We'll never know. We'll see.
absolutely. Thank you for playing choices, guys.
It was fun.
And thank you for being on the show, Michael and Alex. It was really, really interesting. Great to have you. And if just quickly, if our listeners want to hit you up on social media, where can they find you, Alex?
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitter at Alex Gange Ruzik. Pretty much all my stuff is on there, so you can see what I'm up to. Lots of mostly just Whitecaps, Canada, men's and women's national team, and CPL whenever I can. I'm going to be moving back out to Toronto soon for school for a few months, so I'll be getting stuck into what I can around there. I know it sucks. I'm going to wear my Vancouver badge proudly for those 3 months I'm in Toronto, but it'll be good because I'll try to, check out Forge in the Champions League.
Nice.
Maybe I'll head over to Montreal to check out the Champions League, some games like that. Obviously, Canada playing at home, so lots to look forward to. So I'll be covering all that. So if you guys you can find me all of that stuff there. But it was a pleasure to be on the show. First of all, thanks to you guys. It was 3 hours flew by. Shows how good of a time it was to chat and just bring up some of these awesome choices and all this stuff like that. It was a good time.
Thank you, Alex, man. It's a pleasure to have you, man. And Michael,
I just want to start by saying Alex's stuff that he does, his deep dives on the national team, men and women, is fantastic. So if you aren't familiar with his stuff, definitely check it out. Some of the best coverage that's out there. I'm found on Twitter at AFT in Canada. You can find all our stuff, aftn.ca, all our podcasts and stuff on that. I'll just plug our latest one. We've got a long one, not as long as this. I thought mine were long at 2.5 hours, but this has pipped me. We've got a couple of interviews in that with some with TSS about League One BC and Kwame Ewua, David Egbo and Theo Bair as well. Wow. So check all that stuff out.
Cool. And thank you for being here, Michael. Thanks, Hedy and Eve. As usual, it was a pleasure. And big shout out to CanFC for the platform. Thank you to all our listeners who logged in or listened during the week on the podcast version. It's great to have you and to hear from you on Twitter and Facebook and wherever you find us. So until next time, have a great week, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of The Ball is Round.